Chapter 773. From the looks of it, Gu Fei's faction was part of the city government's guard. He was a civil servant, and the wanted license was proof of his identity. The reward given to him by the faction was actually based on the wanted license, which made Gu Fei very disappointed. Although he was not particular about the person, Gu Fei felt that a new piece of equipment or a new skill would be more exciting. He took out the wanted license from his pocket and looked at it. It had been upgraded twice in a row, and the grade was indeed different. At the very least, it was heavier. Looking closely, the original hardcover book was now completely made of metal. The words and patterns on each page were so concave and convex, and the cover and back cover were polished to be as smooth as a mirror. They could even reflect light when exposed to the sun. This can't be one of the rewards, right? Gu Fei sweated. The appearance of the wanted license had changed greatly. If this was a reward for leveling up, the system was too shameless. Fortunately, the system still cared about face. The change in appearance was just a side effect of leveling up the wanted license. The real reward for leveling up was the search function. This was what Gu Fei had dreamed of when he was hunting down Jianan and the others. But if it was a normal wanted mission, normal wanted missions were not bad either. From now on, he could directly search for experts on the leaderboard if they had committed a PK crime. Thinking of this, Gu Fei nodded. He was very satisfied with this reward. The second reward was that when he was in the city, he could show the wanted license to the guards and temporarily recruit guards to assist in the wanted mission. His current level allowed him to mobilize 2 ordinary guards. This function was looked down upon by Gu Fei. He was usually afraid that people would snatch his kills, and now the reward was to give him helpers. How unnecessary was this? This reward made Gu Fei very unhappy, and he left the guard room with a stomach full of complaints. Outside the municipal building, Sword Demon and the others were still standing there. Moreover, they were not the only ones. Those who came later to claim their rewards, such as Jian Yu and the others, as well as some of the guild leaders who had been magnanimous by the city lord, heard that 8,000 Miles Drunk would go in to claim even more awesome rewards. They all stopped and waited anxiously like parents waiting outside the college entrance examination. Gu Fei finally came out. Everyone's eyes widened as they appraised Gu Fei from head to toe. Many people who tried to appraise Gu Fei failed. Gu Fei was currently at level 43, surpassing the mainstream level of 41 and 42. The poor Cloud City player's EXP reward was not enough to complete such a huge leap in level. What exactly is the reward? Hurry and hand it over. Slin Waistance was also one of the people outside the door. She was one of the people who used appraisal art, and she was one of the people who could not be identified. She was still at level 42. Although the EXP reward for the winning side was higher than that of the losing side, compared to Gu Feijian's Phantom Sword, there was a huge difference. In fact, the difference between Gu Fei and the Sword Demon was like the difference between clouds and mud. However, Gu Fei's level was 1 level lower than the top experts. So, after receiving the EXP reward, he was considered to be on the same level as these top experts. However, Sword Demon, who also had the experience award, was still above Gu Fei. At times like this, brother Yu would jump up and down, sometimes in the game and sometimes in the forum. He had just brought news that as the players received their rewards for the city war, the top 5, top 10, and top 7 rankings in the game had undergone earth-shattering changes. Currently, the Sword Ghost and Gu Fei were ranked 1st and 2nd in the parallel world level rankings, and the rankings behind them were constantly being refreshed. The players who completed the difficult quests were rewarded handsomely in this city war. Brother, you said? For example, in Moonlit Night City, the player who completed the werewolf quest in the 10 Guild Alliance had already surpassed one of the original top 5, the big brother of the 10 Guild Alliance, Yun Zhongmu. In fact, during the city war, the guild leaders mostly played the role of a commander. The commander could not be evaluated by the system, so when it came to rewards, the guild leaders' rewards were not outstanding. However, the guild territory rewards and reputation rewards were basically for the guild leaders, so the guild leaders did not care about these things at all. Other than Sword Demon and Qianli, who are the other 3 new top 5? Someone asked Brother Yu. I'm not sure yet. They will be rewarded one by one. When the rewards are all collected, it will be about time. I will also collect my reward first. Brother, you replied. He paused his tracking report and ran to collect his reward. Gu Fei walked out of the municipal building. When he saw so many people staring at him, and Slender Waist Dance shouting at him, he immediately understood. When he saw that the people in front of him were all experts, he was very pleased. He raised his wanted license and announced, "Experts, be careful. In the future, when I do wanted missions, I can directly search your name. Experts have priority." What? The guild leaders did not react for a moment. Thus, Gu Fei patiently explained the function of his wanted license again. Instantly, everyone's face turned green. Slender Waist Dance said angrily, "You dare to collect me?" Gu Fei was stunned. Before he could think, Slender Waist Dance had already come over and pinched him. "You dare to hesitate? I won't search you, I won't search you." Gu Fei smiled helplessly. "That's more like it." Slender Waist Dance nodded in satisfaction. With her tough personality, it was normal for her to be tainted with PK points. If she was really targeted by this person, she would spend half of her gaming life in jail. After Slender Waist Dance succeeded, Yutian Shenming and the others also said, "Qianli, of course you're not the kind of person who values love over friendship, right?" In fact, everyone thought that no matter how much Gu Fei loved wanted missions, he would at least give face to his close friends. However, at this time, these people still came to confirm, which made Gu Fei very puzzled. Was he that unreasonable? However, as he spoke, he suddenly understood from their expressions that they weren't trying to confirm it. Instead, they were trying to show off to the guild leaders and experts who had already turned ashen from shock. "Look, you'll be chased by Qianli drunk when you have PK in the future, but we're Qianli drunk brothers, so it's fine." The group of old friends led by Yutian Shenming all thought the same. Only the honest sword demon did not join in the fun. Gu Fei was very depressed, but the other guild leaders could not miss this opportunity. Taking advantage of the fact that Qianli drunk was right in front of them, they suddenly exploded and swarmed him with extreme enthusiasm. Brother Qianli against the current felt that he had some friendship with Gu Fei, so he should be able to stop Gu Fei from searching against the current. However, he had just said 6 words when a violent guy came out of nowhere and pushed against the current aside. Against the current was furious, but when he turned around to look, he saw that there were a bunch of strong guys around him. He didn't know which one of them was the culprit. He saw this group of warrior guild leaders taking advantage of their strength and rushing to Gu Fei's side. They kept shouting, "Boss 1000 Miles, I'm Triple X from Triple X Guild. Can you give me some face and not search my name? If you have any conditions, just name them." Of course, most of them did not know or have any friendship with Gu Fei. They could only hurriedly introduce themselves and promise great benefits. At first, most of them were like this brother, writing a check for Gu Fei to fill. However, as more and more people like this appeared, the checks were suspected to be empty checks. Therefore, some people began to shout out the exact rewards. Later, there were people who waved their money bags and immediately promised to pay. Moreover, many guild leaders were no longer just thinking for themselves. Just now, there was a person who waved a large piece of paper and said that he hoped that Qianli drunk would give him some face and that they could buy out all the names listed on it. Against the current originally thought that he had the highest chance of being pardoned by Gu Fei, but he did not expect this situation to develop. Now, those who could get close to Gu Fei were all people with strength. A mage like Against the Current was already lucky that he had not been trampled on. Looking left and right, the guild leaders who were also powerless like him had all been farmed out of the circle. They even had to guess where Qianli drunk was. Against the Current was furious. He hurriedly sent out a message to gather the most powerful people in his guild to force a way out for himself. Against the Current wasn't the only one who called for help. With the spread of the news, more and more players rushed over to ask for pardons. The warrior guild leaders at the front naturally did not dare to offend Gu Fei. At first, they acted as a human wall, but as the push grew, they could not hold on any longer. They hurriedly shouted at Gu Fei, "Boss Qianli, we can't hold on anymore. We can't hold on any longer." But Gu Fei saw that the situation was completely out of control. He did not know where his friends had gone. There were people in all directions. Where could he run to? Kill his way out? They were not here to cause trouble, but to curry favor with him. He really could not do something like killing his way out. He could only teleport. Gu Fei was about to take out a teleportation scroll when he suddenly received a message. He opened it and saw that it was drifting. Enter the building, idiot. Gu Fei came to a sudden realization. He hurriedly turned around and pushed open the door of the municipal building behind him. It was also at this moment that the row of warrior guild leaders who were holding hands to protect Gu Fei finally couldn't hold on any longer. With a loud smacking sound, 3 of them saw that Gu Fei had been too relaxed after dodging the crowd. They suddenly stopped resisting and were directly knocked to the ground. Then the crowd surged forward, trampled, white light. 3 strong warrior guild leaders were actually trampled to death just like that. Gu Fei did not know about this. He pushed open the door and rushed in. The door then closed automatically. The door opened with a casual push from Gu Fei, but the players behind him were pushed against the door like pancakes by the crowd. The door did not budge at all. A few of them were pushed to the ground like they were being trampled. They all shouted at the top of their lungs, "Stop squeezing, you're going to die." Their words were useless. They still squeezed. Fortunately, someone was quick-witted and shouted, "Chinli drunk left, stop squeezing." Although the players might not believe it, they still had to take a look. Sure enough, the black-robed mage was no longer in front of the building. Slowly, the crowd began to calm down. The guild leaders were activating their intelligence network. No matter what, they had to contact Chinli drunk to negotiate with him. It was calm for less than a minute. Suddenly, someone pointed. "Chinli drunk is over there?" Everyone turned around and saw Gu Fei's figure appear behind a window in the hall. He had even pulled open another window. "Hey, can't you be a little more quiet?" Drifting sighed and sent a message to Gu Fei. He quickly moved to the side. Then he saw the crowd rush to the small window. Even the ticket window during the spring festival would be shameful compared to this scene. Don't push, don't push. You can't get through the window." The tragedy repeated itself. The players in the front row shouted again. But this time, Gu Fei hid behind the window. The players could not reach him, so he had a chance to speak. He shouted, "Quiet, quiet, listen to me. Quiet all of you. Boss Chenli is going to speak. Do you hear me?" Hearing Gu Fei's words, the players in the front row immediately tried to curry favor with Gu Fei by conveying the message. Their usual pretentious attitude as a guild leader was completely gone. With a single sentence from Gu Fei, they became more obedient. The crowd quieted down again. When Gu Fei saw that it was almost quiet, he stuffed his head in the window and shouted, "Everyone listen to me." Everyone was excited. As long as Chenli was drunk and willing to speak, then any conditions could be discussed. "Look, there are only so many players who can be considered experts. All of them want me to let them go. Brothers, who do you want me to put a bounty on?" Gu Fei shouted. "Put a bounty on anyone, as long as it's not me. Boss Chenli, this is our guild's name list." The guild leader in front of the window had been squeezed into a pancake. When he heard Gu Fei's words, he struggled to shove the name list in his hand into the window. But the player next to him was quick. He snatched the name list and threw it away. He was a selfish guy. He just kept poking his head out of the window and said, "Boss Chenli, I'm not as greedy as him. Just recognize me and don't put a bounty on me. My name is..." "Fuck off." A third person pounced on him. He pushed the first one to the side and struggled in front of the window. "If you really don't want to be a bounty on you, there's actually a way," Gu Fei said. This time, Gu Fei didn't shout. But strangely, it seemed like everyone heard him. The crowd quieted down. Those who didn't hear clearly only dared to ask quietly, "What did he say? There's a way?" "He said there's a way, right?" "Yes, there's a way." He said it. The players who heard clearly became excited again. "The way is to stop when it's appropriate," Gu Fei said. "Stop when it's appropriate?" Everyone was stunned. Then, someone laughed and said, "Boss Chenli, is there a need for that? We all admit that we aren't your opponent. You killed 1,000 of Singing to Wine's players. How could we dare to challenge you? Now, we've all been stopped when it's appropriate. We've all lost. Sit. We've all lost. Everyone said. Only the singing to Wine's players who were used as an example were angry. They really wanted to jump out and explain that they hadn't been killed. Everyone has misunderstood. Gu Fei hurriedly said, "What I mean is, when everyone PK, stop when it's appropriate. Only then will you not get PK points. If you don't get PK points, of course, you won't be wanted by me. Am I right?" Many players wanted to curse, but they all held it in. What kind of stupid method was this? Stop when it's appropriate? Would that still be considered PK? Like in previous online games, where they would plant flags and learn from each other. But the problem was that the parallel world didn't provide this function. Even if it did, our two guilds were going to fight. We can't just plant flags one-on-one, right? How could we bully the other with numbers? Gu Fei's method obviously didn't receive the approval of the players. As guild players, in their minds, PK was never a one-on-one fight. It was a group fight. How could there be a limit to a group fight? Never heard of it, that's it. Everyone, take care. Gu Fei said the last sentence and slammed the window shut. The players hadn't recovered yet. When they saw Qianli leave drunk, they immediately started howling again. But this time, Gu Fei didn't show up. He only sent a message to Drifting, "What's the use of entering? We still have to rely on teleportation." The players blocked the municipal building like they were petitioning and refused to leave. In the end, Gu Fei used a teleportation scroll and left. Luckily, there were still plenty of scrolls after the city war. If there wasn't even one, it would be really difficult. Sword Demon and the other veterans didn't expect something like this to happen. This was absolutely unprecedented because there had never been such an overpowered expert in any online game. Brother, you couldn't help but exclaim in the channel, "It can't be. Could it be that our Cloud City will be purified into a PV-only city because of Qianli's drunkenness? It's possible that it will be purified into a ghost city, right? If we can't PK, then the game will lose a lot of fun. Just this point alone will probably drive away a lot of players, right? Our Cloud City won't have anyone." Yutian Shenming said. "Drive away?" Gu Fei asked. "Other cities?" Yutian Shenming said. "My bounty license can't only be used in Cloud City." Gu Fei said. "Are you serious or are you joking?" Yutian Shenming asked. "Joking? A joke. I can use it anywhere. I dealt with Fire-Burning Cloak in Fog City. Did you guys forget?" Gu Fei said. Let's talk about this. Even though it's quite funny, as an expert that often gets involved in PK, the pressure is really great. I just want to say one thing. Unscathed in Battle said. "What?" "Qianli, it's great that I got to know you so early." Unscathed in Battle said. "You're disgusting." The people of Department 1 vomited. "Is there a problem with what I'm doing?" Gu Fei asked. "No problem." Han Family Young Master said. "You're saying that because you've never had PK points, right?" Everyone looked at him with disdain. Put yourself in his shoes. If we didn't know Qianli and he used his license to put us on the wanted list, it would be quite painful. Sword Demon said. "Brother Qianli, I finally found you." As the few of them were discussing, Gu Fei was suddenly blocked by a group of people. Looking up, he saw Sword of No Oath and Against the Current. The two of them were together again. "Hello." Gu Fei greeted the two. "About the wanted list, we'd like to talk to Brother Qianli again. How about we find a place to sit down?" Unsworn Sword suggested. Originally, they had added Gu Fei as friends, but Gu Fei had the foresight to close the private chat after teleporting out of the hall. They couldn't contact Unsworn Sword, so they could only search around the city. Who knew that their luck would be good this time, and they quickly found him. Of course, it wasn't without flaws. This guy, Against the Current, also suddenly appeared. Chapter 774. My Two Bosses. Gu Fei was troubled when he saw Unsworn Sword and Against the Current. These two brothers weren't strangers anymore. If it was anything else, he would have given them face, but today's matter would affect his pursuit. Although players weren't on the same level as him, they were at least stronger than NPCs in the wild. No matter how high the level of a wild monster was, once you were familiar with it, it was boring. Players might not be able to kill in one hit, but there would always be different details in every kill. That was what made it fun. As for these two in front of him, Gu Fei believed that they wouldn't just ask for a safe sign for himself. They would definitely consider the whole of their guild. As guilds that were obviously stronger in Cloud City, these two included the majority of the experts in Cloud City. Promising to let their people go? That was too much of a sacrifice. There was something that Gu Fei was too embarrassed to say. In front of the administration building, some people really thought too highly of themselves. Gu Fei's words were quite clear from the start. Experts, be careful. This was the function of the bounty license. Gu Fei was prepared to use it to compete with the expert players, but in the end, it caused everyone to be in danger. In fact, in those small guilds, who could be called an expert? Even their guild leader might not be that good. These people were really worrying too much. Brother Qianli, let's talk. Give me some face. Unsworn sword and against the current looked a little pitiful. Gu Fei's heart softened. In the end, he still nodded. In his heart, he was thinking about how to reject these two guys' request. Favors were really troublesome, especially since this matter wasn't a big deal to Gu Fei. It was just an entertainment activity. It really wasn't good to reject them righteously. Let's go to Little Ray's bar. It's not far. Brother Qianli is also very familiar with it, against the current suggested. Gu Fei nodded. He was going to Little Ray's bar to meet up with his old friends. This saved him a lot of trouble. For the first time, Unsworn Sword and Against the Current didn't bring any brothers with them. It seemed like they wanted to express their sincerity. However, Gu Fei's eyes were sharp, and he had a murderous aura. He had long since noticed that there were people peeping from both sides of the street. One side was raining, and the other side was drinking and singing. At this time, they cooperated with their guild leader and pretended to be passers-by. Gu Fei feigned ignorance. The three of them walked side by side to Xiaolei's tavern. Unsworn Sword and Against the Current acted like the hosts, one leading the way to find a seat, while the other went straight to Xiaolei for a drink. Unsworn Sword led Gu Fei to a private room and sat down. Against the Flow had already entered with a tray of wine. Please. Unsworn Sword poured a glass for Gu Fei and ignored Against the Current. At this moment, he actually hoped that Against the Current could roll to the side. So, he sat on the side of the sofa without moving, not giving way to Against the Current. On the other hand, Gu Fei was kind. He took the initiative to move in and let Against the Current sit on his side. Unsworn Sword immediately regretted it. Why was Qianli such a kind person when he was drunk? Why didn't I know? Naturally, the three of them raised their glasses to each other. After putting down their glasses, Gu Fei took the initiative to speak. Gu Fei, a martial arts expert, was well versed in predicting the enemy's movements and taking the initiative to strike first. My two brothers, I know why you are here, but this matter is a little too difficult for me. To be honest, my goal in this game is a little different from yours. Equipment, quests, and so on are not important, but this opportunity to compete with others is the most I don't want to miss. But I can't just go on the streets and kill people, right? So, the only way is to complete a bounty quest. In the past, the PK points were just randomly collected. 8 out of 10 people couldn't even withstand a single blow. But now, with this bounty license, I can challenge experts every day. This is something I really don't want to miss. Gu Fei spoke the truth, his tone sincere and serious. However, Sword of the Unsworn and Against the Current were both complaining when they heard this. As expected of a PK maniac. I was right about this. Unsworn Sword thought. Equipment is nothing? If you have the guts, give me your dark streamer and robe. Against the Current thought. So, no matter what request you two have, I'm afraid it will be very difficult for me to accept. Gu Fei concluded. He felt that he had already sealed off all the words he wanted to say. Unsworn Sword and Against the Current looked at each other. Unsworn Sword said, "What do you mean?" "What do you mean?" Against the Current asked. "I mean, shouldn't you leave first?" Unsworn Sword said. "Why should I leave first and not you?" Against the Current was unconvinced. "Because you're closer to the door." Unsworn Sword said. Idiot. Against the current cursed, but he still got up and left the room. Although these two guys came together, they seemed to have their own plans. They didn't want to mix with the other party at all. Against the current walked out of the room. Gu Fei respectfully waited for Unsworn Sword to speak. Unexpectedly, this guy suddenly punched the wall of the room beside him. This room was completely made by Little Ray, so it wasn't very sturdy. This punch almost flipped it over. Then he heard Unsworn Sword yell, "Don't lie outside and eavesdrop. I can smell your stench." Fuck you. Against the current's voice was indeed separated by a wall. This guy wanted to hear what Unsworn Sword was planning, and then listen to Gu Fei's reaction. He didn't expect to be seen through, so he could only walk away resentfully. Guild leader Unsworn, if you have something to say, just say it. Gu Fei smiled. These two guild leaders were really noisy. Unsworn Sword also pondered for a long time, then said, after hearing Brother Qinli's words, I'm too embarrassed to say my original plan. I only have one last request. I hope that Brother Qinli will give me some face no matter what. What is it? Gu Fei asked. He thought to himself, this guy isn't asking me to let him go, is he? If that's the case, then he really deserves to be looked down on. From now on, I'll search Unsworn Sword every day. If there are people in our guild who cause trouble and get involved in PvP, I can't be bothered to care about them. But sometimes, as a guild, we have to fight with other guilds. At times like this, I hope that Brother Qinli can let our guild brothers go. Unsworn Sword finally voiced his request. When Gu Fei heard this, he quickly thought about it. During a team battle, there were a lot of PvP. It was a great opportunity for Gu Fei to launch a bounty. However, now that Unsworn Sword wanted Gu Fei to give up this big cake, he was a little reluctant. Generally, this kind of team battle won't happen without warning. When the time comes, I'll send Brother Qinli a message in advance, and you'll give us a short period of immunity. Once the battle is over, we'll immediately clean up the PvP. We definitely won't interfere with Brother Qinli's entertainment. What do you think? Unsworn Sword said. This, of course, we won't trouble Brother Qinli for nothing. Every time there's an event, we'll first send a reward. As long as Brother Qinli agrees, we can discuss the price. Unsworn Sword didn't make empty promises. He promised Gu Fei a huge profit. Gu Fei was speechless for a long time. In the end, he let out a deep sigh. I think I'll still have to reject you. Gu Fei said. But Unsworn Sword had been enjoying the changes in Gu Fei's expression. He originally thought that there was a lot of hope. I don't want my activities to be restricted. I didn't give you any face, so you don't have to show me any mercy. In fact, I can already foresee you guys being wanted. Experts, especially those high on the leaderboards, will become my priority targets. For example, Brother Unsworn, if you have PK points, you can immediately be careful. Gu Fei said. Wow, Brother Qinli, you won't be so heartless that you won't even let me go, right? Unsworn Sword laughed. He realized that there was no hope, so he wanted to make a joke to gain some special status for himself. That's hard to say. It's always better to be careful. Gu Fei said. Unsworn Sword's face was a bit green, but he still squeezed out a smile. However, he didn't give up. There had to be a way to move him. Unsworn Sword thought this way, but it seemed like there was no hope for him in the first round. Unsworn Sword was quite unwilling, but he still sent a message to Countercurrent. Hey, it's your turn. How are you? Countercurrent, who was waiting outside, replied to Unsworn Sword as he walked over. Not a chance. Unsworn Sword purposely destroyed Countercurrent's confidence. Then I'll have to congratulate you. Unsworn Sword failed. Countercurrent was obviously happy, so he opened the curtain and entered the room. Unsworn Sword took the initiative this time, shrinking back to give way to Countercurrent. However, Countercurrent didn't appreciate it this time and stared at him fiercely. However, Unsworn Sword's skin was also one of the thickest in Cloud City. He pretended to ignore it and calmly sat in his seat, drinking his wine. Shameless, do you think you know how to stealth? Countercurrent said. What, can't I sit for a while? Unsworn Sword showed off his shamelessness. Get out. Countercurrent roared. Unsworn Sword helplessly got up and patted Countercurrent's shoulder before he left. Then I'll congratulate you in advance. The two of them had a message conversation before, so Upstream knew very well what this congratulations meant. This was a blatant curse, but he was not in the mood to care about it. He watched as the Sword of No Oath left the door, and then watched as he completely left. Only then did Upstream return to his seat. Gu Fei had a helpless expression on his face. No matter what the other said, he wasn't going to listen. He had to treat everyone equally. Both Unsworn Sword and Countercurrent were his important customers, so he couldn't favor one and discriminate against the other. As for against the current, his observation skills were much better than Unsworn Sword's. Looking at Gu Fei's expression, he was probably waiting for him to reject him the moment he opened his mouth. Countercurrent didn't think that the words he prepared were smart, but looking at Gu Fei's expression, he didn't want to embarrass himself. This guy's thoughts moved very quickly. Without saying anything, he directly jumped his mentality to the last step of the Sword of No Oath just now. Unfortunately, this guy had the same thoughts as the hateful Unsworn Sword. There's still a long way to go. I'll slowly build a good relationship with Qianli and then work hard. If I can be as close to him as Sword Demon and his gang, won't he also go easy on me? Countercurrent thought like this and didn't rush to speak. He just looked at Gu Fei and smiled. Gu Fei was scared and asked in confusion, "Don't you have anything to say, Guild Master Countercurrent?" "Nope, what's there to say? We can't stop Brother Qianli from finding the fun in the game," Countercurrent said. Gu Fei was surprised. "Then you're here for, I met that Unsworn Sword guy on the way, so I decided to follow him to take a look. You know, we've always been competitors with them, so I have to pay attention to them." Against the current quickly used the Sword of No Oath as a spear. "Then what did you see?" Gu Fei asked. From the looks of it, it seems like his wishful thinking has failed. If he can really get Brother Qianli to give him face, then we'll be in big trouble. If that's the case, I'll have to be thick-skinned and ask Brother Qianli to give us the same treatment," Countercurrent said. Gu Fei laughed when he heard this. "Of course I'll treat everyone the same, don't worry." Countercurrent looked very happy when he heard this. He simply stood up and said, "Then I'll take my leave first. Let's get together again if there's a chance. I have some mage stuff that I really want to discuss with Brother Qianli, but I haven't had the chance." Countercurrent used the convenience of their classes to find a chance to establish a friendship with Gu Fei. Gu Fei smiled. "Take care, Guild Master Countercurrent. Be careful when you have PK points." Countercurrent paused for a moment, then understood Gu Fei's meaning. His expression didn't change, but he continued to chuckle in his heart. Of course. Watching Countercurrent leave, Gu Fei let out a long sigh of relief. Then, without batting an eyelid, he quietly walked to the door of the private room next door and suddenly barged in. The 5 people in the private room were all glued to the partition. Brother Yu Yutian Shinming, and unscathed in battle, each had a wine glass and were leaning against the partition to listen. Sword Demon and Han Family Young Master weren't as wretched and impatient as the other 3, but their attention was clearly on the other side. But as soon as Gu Fei barged in, the 2 of them noticed. The Sword Ghost immediately grew embarrassed, while the Han clan's young master's expression was the same as ever. He calmly sat down as if nothing had happened. Coming. Gu Fei knocked on the table. The 3 guys were still lying there listening. The 3 guys turned around and saw Gu Fei. They said in unison, "It's over?" "It's over." Gu Fei nodded. "Brother, you didn't believe it. Countercurrent really left just like that? This guy, could it be that what he said was true? How is that possible? He's retreating in order to advance." At this time, those who are still in a hurry to talk to him about this are all idiots. Slowly build up friendship, cultivate feelings, and when the time comes, the crisis will naturally be resolved. Han Family Young Master said. Countercurrent scheming is indeed deeper than Unsworn Swords. Brother, you sighed. But being too scheming isn't a good thing. Look, our hero Qianli is now obviously disgusted by Countercurrent. Unsworn Sword said what he wanted to say, but he still took the lead. Han Family Young Master said. Hero Qianli, what exactly are you thinking? Yutian Shenming pretended to be interviewing. I'll do whatever I want. What's there to think about? Gu Fei didn't take this as a problem at all. Free and easy, really free and easy. Yutian Shenming said. That's why I said, it's great to know Qianli. Unscathed in battle came again. That's enough. Gu Fei also pulled a long face. Unscathed in battle immediately shut his mouth and shrank into a corner. I have something fun for you. Gu Fei said to Han Family Young Master. Oh. Han Family Young Master was extremely surprised. The others were also startled, but Sword Demon quickly remembered something. As expected, Gu Fei took out the magic pointed hat and threw it to Han Family Young Master. How about it? Do you dare to wear it? Han Family Young Master picked it up and looked at it. He nodded and said, the attributes are not bad. The style is also not bad, right? Gu Fei said. The others were all smirking. Style? Han Family Young Master picked up the hat and looked at it a few times. Is the style that important? I don't believe there's anything in this world that can ruin my beauty. Fuck. Everyone raised their middle fingers in disdain. This person's shamelessness and narcissism was even defeated by such a funny hat. Are you sure you don't want it? Han Family Young Master asked Gu Fei. Gu Fei waved his hand. He was a person who cared about his face. He really couldn't wear this hat. It was very childish. If his students saw it, how could he be a teacher in the future? Do I need to give you money? Han Family Young Master asked. Take it, take it. Gu Fei of course didn't need it. Thus, this guy very calmly accepted it. Gu Fei was about to say something else when the wall of the room suddenly rang. Someone knocked a few times and carefully asked, Is Qianli Izue here? Gu Fei felt that the voice was a bit familiar and hurriedly replied, Who is it? Come in. Two people walked in. Gu Fei turned around and saw Duo Mu and Mudwa. How helpless. Recently, he had been too popular. Is it convenient? Duo Mu and Mudwa weren't strangers to Gu Fei, so they didn't need to explain their intentions. You guys do what you need to do. The other five prepared to leave. They didn't have anything important to discuss here. They hadn't received all the rewards yet and the guild merger still had to wait. Don't. You guys are all famous experts. If it's convenient, we'd like to ask you guys for your opinions. Duo Mu and Mudwa said. The experts were very comfortable listening to this, so they all sat down. Speak. What's the problem? It's the current rumor that all the big guilds are fighting for immunity from arrest. Domu said. Immunity? From arrest? The others were at a loss. Yeah, didn't Qianli get a new piece of equipment? I heard that you can search the ID of a wanted target, right? Duo Mu asked. It's not equipment, it's an item. Brother, you spoke first. Yes, it's called a wanted license. Unscathed in battle said. The reward is a license upgrade, so there's this new function. Yutian Shenming said. Qianli, do you have anything to add? Duo Mu asked Gu Fei. No. Gu Fei said. We went to the city hall just now. I heard that Qianli, you've already rejected all of the guild immunity requests? Then what are the requirements to succeed? Duo Mu asked. Beauty and wealth. For example, the skinny dance. You're the first to be exempted. Yutian Shenming was the first to answer. Brothers, true brothers. For example, I'm Qianli's true brother. Unscathed in battle said seriously. Boobs and also noobs. I don't think Qianli is interested in noobs. He only knows how to search for experts. Brother, you said. Qianli, do you have anything to add? Duo Mu asked. Why don't we just interview them? Gu Fei suggested. Chapter 775. You do it, you do it. Unscathed in battle and Yutian Shenming nodded and bowed, indicating for Gu Fei to come forward and accept the interview. I'll add on. Brother, you wouldn't let go of the opportunity to gossip no matter what. Duo Mu and Mudwa looked at Gu Fei. Seeing that he didn't have any objections, they continued the interview. After that, the questions were answered by Gu Fei himself. Duo Mu and Mudwa had the demeanor of a professional reporter. The questions they asked were mostly ordinary, not awkward or incisive. But after they sorted them out and wrote them down, it was another matter. Fortunately, the two of them had always reported on Gu Fei from the perspective of flattery and flattery. So, although it was a bit exaggerated sometimes, the people who read the report were basically brother you. When he came back, he told it to everyone as a joke, so Gu Fei just laughed it off and ignored it. Duo Mu and Mudwa were very serious about their work. After the interview, they quickly left to prepare their draft. Just as Gu Fei let out a sigh of relief, a dang 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 sound rang out again. The few of them were startled. Someone was already calling from outside. Is Brother Qianli here? This time, the voice was very unfamiliar. Gu Fei happened to be sitting by the door. He turned around and poked his head out. Just as he was about to see who it was, he was shocked. People. A sea of people. It was unknown when so many people had squeezed into Little Ray's bar. They were lined up in a long snake formation, twisting and turning in the bar, all the way from the entrance to the bar where Gu Fei was. When Gu Fei poked his head out, the person in front of the door immediately smiled. Hello, Brother Qianli. You are? I'm the president of Mirrored Flowers, Reflection. My name is Mirrored Flowers. The person introduced herself. You guys sigh? Gu Fei didn't know what to say. Can I go in and talk? Mirrored Flowers expressed. Come in, come in. The one who answered wasn't Gu Fei, but the other five. At this time, they enthusiastically invited Jing Huayuan into the private room and then patted Gu Fei's shoulder. Work hard, you can do it. After saying this, the five of them swaggered off. Little Ray was overjoyed at this time. With so many people coming all of a sudden, he didn't care that there were no seats. They all ordered him to take the wine. For the sake of convenience, they even asked for bottles. Little Ray was overjoyed. Gu Fei saw that it couldn't go on like this. There was no end to it. Could it be that he could only hide in the wilderness from now on? With that thought in mind, Gu Fei also stepped out of the private room and flew up to Little Ray's bar. He waved his hand and said, "Everyone listen to me." This time, the discipline was much better than at the municipal building. It was unknown how the presidents negotiated, but everyone lined up in an orderly manner and maintained silence. Even Gu Fei, who was being interviewed by Duo Mudwa in the private room, didn't notice that so many people had gathered just a wall away. Now that Gu Fei had spoken, everyone was even quieter. Gu Fei opened his mouth and said, "I'm very clear about everyone's intentions. However, bounty missions are the main joy of my game. Without them, most of my game would be meaningless, so I definitely won't back down in this aspect. Everyone please go back." Everyone was nodding their heads, patiently listening to Gu Fei, as if they understood him very well. But as soon as Gu Fei finished speaking, a voice immediately followed up, "Boss Qianli, can we talk together? Is my meaning not clear enough?" Gu Fei said, "Boss Qianli, listen to me." Someone shamelessly rubbed against him. Gu Fei really didn't know what to do. Why didn't these players give up no matter what? Gu Fei couldn't just directly kill them all. He couldn't afford to provoke them, so he could only hide. He took out a teleportation scroll and quietly shook it. Suddenly, a white light flashed on the bar, and Gu Fei disappeared. Sigh. The players were all dejected, but he had already resolutely left. They couldn't do anything about it. The players were afraid of Gu Fei, but they were also somewhat dissatisfied in their hearts. They felt that this person was determined to go against all the players in the city. It was really not harmonious. After waiting for a while, the presidents gradually dispersed. At a table in the corner of Little Ray's bar, Yi Xiaowu was gritting his teeth at Broken Arrow. "Did you see that?" "I saw it." Broken Arrow sighed. If it was just a normal player, getting such a reward wouldn't be a big deal at all. But in the hands of Qianli when he was drunk, look, how big of a storm did he set off? Everyone's game state was ruined. Yi Xiaowu said hatefully. After this kind of large-scale event, the system's reward was random. Even Yi Xiaowu couldn't predict it in advance. He also later found out from the players that Qianli caused such an incident when he was drunk. Later, he followed the presidents to Little Ray's bar to see what happened. Unexpectedly, he saw that Qianli didn't give face to anyone and insisted on continuing his game style. With such a strong hindrance, will no one dare to PK in Cloud City in the future? Broken Arrow said. Very likely. Yi Xiaowu said. Then as a game designer, do you support players PK or not? Broken Arrow suddenly asked. This. Yi Xiaowu was startled. After a slight hesitation he said, from the perspective of the market, we support more players to compete in PK. This way, we can encourage players to be more involved in the game and generate more spending in the game. Then what's the point of setting up such a wanted system? Now that Qianli is drunk, he's going to ruin your job. Broken Arrow said. Yi Xiaowu wanted to cry but had no tears. On the surface, the wanted system is to suppress PK, but in reality, its biggest function is to help players with PK points wash away their PK points. It's also a disguised form of encouragement for PK. But who would have thought that there would be this kind of guy who would make wanted quests for fun all day long? He doesn't have PK points, but he still does this quest. The reward of this quest isn't that great. Who would risk losing levels to PK just for this little bit of reward? If he wasn't so invincible, would he dare to endlessly carry out wanted quests like this? Just a few mistakes and he'll lose all his levels. What about apple cider vinegar? That guy killed over 1,000 people and he doesn't seem to have missed once, right? But to say invincible, he's far from it. Broken Arrow said. The problem is that if a normal player wanted to PK, he would be like that crazy apple cider vinegar and just randomly PK people. Why would he do a wanted quest? This guy. AI, he's doing this for the good of his character. But his existence has always affected the game, and it's getting bigger and bigger. Before, he was just taking equipment and killing bosses, and then he developed efficient leveling methods. Now, he's reversing the city war, making it so that no one in Cloud City dares to PK. I really can't imagine what kind of damage he'll cause if he continues to play. Yi Xiaowu said. Walking out of Cloud City, making it so that no one in the world dares to PK? Broken Arrow guessed. That's not impossible. He'll probably soon discover the hidden function of his wanted license. Yi Xiaowu said. What function? Broken Arrow asked. He already doesn't need to go to the wanted quest office to receive wanted quests anymore. He only needs to use the wanted licenses function to search and find a target, then he can directly receive it. Moreover, he doesn't need to submit a quest to receive the next one. He can first continuously complete quests and then submit them all at once. These are the two hidden functions of the wanted license after raising it by 2 levels. Yi Xiaowu said. What else can we do? Broken Arrow asked. Our strength isn't enough. Yi Xiaowu clenched his teeth. Ever since he discovered the changes in the last stage of the city war, his originally strong confidence constantly wavered. He discovered that others would become more and more familiar with this world, but he, on the other hand, would become more and more unfamiliar with this world. Moreover, he would never be able to become familiar with it again, because he could no longer turn back. At this time, Gu Fei once again flew to the wilderness. These were the coordinates he made during the city war. At this time, he was slowly moving towards the main city. On one side, he sent a message in the channel, Brother Yu, has the level rankings been determined? I'm in the game. In a bit, I'll go down and take a look. After the rewards are received, it should be determined. But our Cloud City might be in for a tragedy this time. Brother Yu said. Everyone was silent. The 200,000 players in the other main cities were in high spirits because of the rewards, but the 200,000 players in Cloud City were working for nothing. In the end, they received a little benefit from the government's recruitment. Clearly, from an overall level perspective, there would be a big drop. Do you want a list of the expert players? Leave this to me, I'm good at it. Brother Yu was excited. He felt like he was a hitman's agent. And that's good. Gu Fei didn't hold back. You're really going to keep killing like this? Sword Demon asked. Doing quests, I'm doing quests. Gu Fei said. So many people, you really don't give any face at all. Everyone was quite surprised. Actually, face was a very magical thing. Sometimes, it was more effective than money or friendship. Especially when there were so many people begging you to give face, it wasn't easy to refuse them without hesitation. How's the guild? Today was supposed to be a big day for Against the Heavens and Amethyst to merge, but Gu Fei's limelight was always this strong, stealing all the attention. There are still some people who haven't received their rewards. Let's talk after receiving them, Sword Demon said. What about your faction reward? Did you receive it? Gu Fei asked. I received it. Sword Demon smiled bitterly, just some experience and money. Sword Demon really didn't do much in terms of faction. He only succeeded in assassinating White and Black. After that, he couldn't find the small bottle cap. After that, he followed Gu Fei to conquer the guild building and capture the king. After that, he led the guild. Then what are you doing now? Gu Fei asked. Hee, of course we're going to the new territory. Unscathed in battle was even more proud than Sword Demon. This guy didn't get any benefits from the tragic city war. At this time, he was excited to see what kind of benefits this territory had. The system was quite considerate. Since it was given to the same guild, the two districts were together. The two districts, Cloud and Miyun, were located in the southeast of Cloud City. They were slightly closer to the east gate. The location wasn't good, but it wasn't too bad either. The Knights' Camp of Cloud City was located in the Miyun district. With such an offline area, it was a bit of a guarantee of popularity. At the entrance of the Knights' Camp, there were a few scattered stalls. As a whole, the development of Cloud and Miyun districts was not complete. At present, the system's real estate business was idle because the land price was too high. Most players couldn't afford it. At present, the most buyers of the real estate business were all guilds. Because guilds could raise funds to buy houses, their financial resources were relatively strong. No matter big or small, buying a house would make them look more imposing and confident in recruiting new people. The award of the two districts sounded like a sentence from the city lord to outsiders. But as members of the guild, the system told them to go to the mailbox to receive a letter from the system. There would be a detailed explanation of this reward. Of course, Sword Demon and the others had already taken it out. The letter stated that the award of the two districts was first to provide a big house of 200 square meters in each district. Then, it was the rules for players to manage the districts. After reading through the letter, everyone understood. Rather than saying that they were given two districts, it was better to say that they were only given the management rights of two districts. The Heaven-Defying Guild could be said to be the operator and manager of the two districts. The main business of the districts was real estate. In the past, the houses in the system were only for sale. But now, under the control of players, there was an option to rent. But whether it was for rent or sale, the system was still the one who got the majority of the income. As the manager of the districts, they could only get some commission from it, which looked like a commission. However, these commissions could be earned in the long run. Even if the houses were sold, the players couldn't think about getting rid of them once and for all. There was still property tax to be paid. If they opened a business in the houses, a portion of the transaction tax would also be given to Sword Demon and the others. This was really a good money-making machine. Sword Demon and the others had two districts in an instant. Including the 4 more districts that would be created after the merger, the economic prospects of the guild were bright and very promising. Because of this, the Sword Ghost felt even more embarrassed when he thought about how the purple crystal reincarnated lady wanted to quit and play the guild again. He once again suggested to July that they should stay in the guild, but they could treat it as an independent group. They could then be given a city to manage and manage. Chiue declined on behalf of the girls of Amethyst Rebirth. The girls were in a good mood. They had also read the letter from the system and understood the value of the districts, but it didn't change their original intentions. In their understanding, if they didn't follow the City Guarding Guild, they wouldn't have been able to get such a high reward. So, they felt that this district award wasn't theirs to begin with, so they didn't feel the pinch even if they didn't get it. Sword Demon smiled bitterly. According to what they said, how many people in the guild were qualified to enjoy this reward? This kind of thing couldn't be said if. At that time, everyone who joined the guild contributed, so they were all qualified. Saying that if they didn't come, then they didn't have it, so they shouldn't have it. This proposition didn't hold water. Even so, Sword Demon still couldn't convince the girls. The girls had already made up their minds. At this time, there were still a few girls who hadn't received the reward. July was waiting for these girls to receive the reward before quitting. Don't discuss it with them. Go back and see if we can transfer the districts. If we can, transfer 2 to them, Brother Yu suggested. If it was any other time, unscathed in battle and Yutian Shinming would most likely feel the pinch, but when they thought about transferring it to Amethyst, they immediately felt relieved. Okay. Sword Demon nodded. As they spoke, they continued to walk around their district. Brother Yu quickly took out his little notebook to count the number of empty houses on each street, how many shops there were, what they did for a living, which belonged to the system, which belonged to players, and how many street stalls there were. As they walked, the door of a big house suddenly opened. A person walked out cheerfully and waved at them. Hello, everyone. Han family young master slapped his head. I knew it. I have a feeling that I've been here before. The other 4 people squinted at him. You really don't participate in guild activities? What appeared in front of them was upstream against the current, and the door that he opened was also embedded with their guild's emblem. Upstream's guild encampment turned out to be in the heaven-defying Cloud District. Everyone, I knew you would come here. Come in and have a seat, Upstream invited them warmly. Sword Ghost and the others exchanged glances with each other. In the end, they entered Singing to Wine's encampment. It was a huge suite with a waiting room, a long corridor, and rooms on both sides. Yutian Shinming stuck out his tongue. This room has to be 300 square meters, right? 286 square meters. Upstream chuckled. Oh, that's 1 square meter bigger than Unhindered in the 4 Seas. Yutian Shinming said. It didn't sound like a coincidence. Upstream chuckled, feeling proud that his encampment was 1 square meter bigger than Unhindered in the 4 Seas. This way, please. Going against the flow, he led the 5 of them inside. There were other people in the room. They were all core members of Upstream, and they greeted the 5 people in a friendly manner. Han family young master rarely participated in guild activities, but he had been here before. The more he walked, the more familiar he became, and he couldn't help but take a detour in the middle. The people behind him were startled. Upstream and Han family young master were walking in a different direction. Just as he squeaked, Upstream had already turned around. When he saw Han family young master walk in that direction, he was startled and quickly nodded. All right, let's talk over there. Everyone was confused as they entered the room that young Master Han had entered. Upon closer inspection, they realized that it was a small tavern. The room wasn't big, and there were only 2 tables. However, it was much more meticulous than the taverns outside. Upstream led them to sit down and took some wine. He originally wanted to bring them to their conference room, but he didn't expect Han family young master to only care about wine and not people. Guild leader Upstream, you've really put in a lot of effort into decorating this place. Sword Demon looked around and thought about how to tidy up their guild encampment in the future. Not at all, just do it casually. Going against the flow, he humbly poured wine for them and then sat down with them. After that, they really did chat about some unimportant topics. When Sword Ghost and the others said that they were going to leave, he politely escorted them out of the door. Seeing the door close behind them, the 5 of them smiled bitterly. He's really patient, going against the current. It seems like he wants to build a good relationship with us step by step. Unscathed in battle said. Patience is patience, but this guy always leaves too many traces when he does things. It's obvious that he has a purpose. This makes people feel rebellious. Brother Yu said. Let's go, let's go. I'm not done counting yet. Brother Yu waved his little book. Sword Demon was still looking at the encampment of Singing and Wine. When everyone greeted him, he turned around. I suddenly feel that we have a huge advantage. In terms of economy, we have the city to collect commissions. In terms of combat, Qianli's suppression has scared so many people away from PK. Isn't it too easy for our guild to develop? Chapter 776. Brother Yu, unscathed in battle, and Yutian Shinming all nodded their heads at the Sword Demon's suggestion. Han family young master, on the other hand, shook his head disapprovingly. That's what you're saying. Currently, most of the major guilds' attitude towards Qianli is to rope him in and curry favor with him. Even if they have any feelings, they're all hiding it in their hearts. But if Qianli doesn't give them any face and forces them into a dead end, there will come a day when a cornered dog will do something desperate. When that time comes, Qianli will truly become the public enemy and a street rat. Will Qianli be afraid? Unscathed in battle didn't think much of it. He's not afraid. But what if the other party uses some coercive tactics? Han family young master said. What do you mean? Unscathed in battle said. Using family to threaten people. Haven't you seen this in movies and TV shows? In the game, for example, you, me, or the reborn Amethyst group of women, what if the other party chooses to continuously kill these people to threaten Qianli? With Qianli's personality, what do you think he'll do? Han family young master said. After everyone was silent for a while, Sword Demon said, Qianli will probably ask us to hide if we can't protect ourselves. Then he'll risk his life to kill these people? Yes, that's Qianli's style. Unscathed in battle said. In any case, I don't think he'll be threatened by others. Yutian Shenming said. Especially in the game. This kind of threat is very easy to avoid. Let's just travel to another main city for a few days. When we come back, who knows who will be the one to die? Brother, you said. Everyone nodded. After that, Yutian Shenming looked like he wanted to say more. After a slight hesitation, he gathered his courage and said, more importantly, in Cloud City, besides you, who else would do such a shameless thing? When the others heard this, they were all shocked. They felt like they had foreseen a storm. Who would have thought that the Han clan's young master would only say in disdain, I still can't understand the wisdom and awareness of you mortals. The mortals' faces immediately darkened. They ignored this fellow and continued to count the 2 districts. The main city was quite large, and the area of the 2 districts wasn't small either. It wasn't easy for Sword Demon and the others to walk every street. In the end, Yutian Shenming, unscathed in battle, and the others lost interest in this boring shopping. Only Sword Demon and Brother Yu were still serious. The Han family's young master, on the other hand, was seriously dealing with his wine. When it was all over, they returned to the guild base that the system had given them for free. Yutian Shenming and Unscathed in battle went in and almost fell to the ground. Sword Demon and Brother Yu began to seriously look through the information that had been sorted out along the way. At this time, there were more than 5 people who came to visit the new house. As the guild leader, Sword Demon didn't set any restrictions on the room, so as long as they were members of the Defiant Guild, they could freely enter and exit. Seeing the arrival of the few core bosses of the guild, the players surrounded them. These players were very overpowered. They had already gained a lot in the city war, but until now, they hadn't established any relationship with the guild. Everyone was more like a temporary tourist group. At this time, many people discovered the great prospects of this guild and began to work hard to integrate into the environment. Of course, building a good relationship with the core bosses was the most important step. Let Boss Sword Demon say a few words to us? Some people jeered. It wasn't easy to know that the boss of the guild was Sword Demon. Many players were still confused at this time and thought that this was a guild where Qianli was drunk. Sword Demon had a proper attitude and was serious. There was no humor in his words. Frankly speaking, it was a relatively boring speech, but it still won a round of applause and cheers. Looking at the group of unfamiliar faces and the noisy noise in the room, Sword Demon was a little emotional. Did I finally establish a guild? He wondered how his old buddies were doing now. Of course, Sword Demon had a group of buddies in the online game. There were many like the Han family young master who happened to be born in the same main city as him. Later, because of his appearance and unfavorable factors such as being defeated by Gu Fei, he chose not to follow Sword Demon anymore. After that, there was no longer any contact, not even a greeting. During this period of time in the game, Sword Demon would occasionally hear from others about these IDs that he was once familiar with. They didn't continue to gather together. After being disappointed with Sword Demon, everyone went their separate ways and found their own guilds to develop. Until now, There was no old friend in Cloud City who was relatively famous, and he hadn't heard of anyone who was the core of any guild. At this time, looking at the new guild members in front of him, Sword Demon suddenly thought of his group of old friends. Just as he was feeling emotional, he vaguely heard someone ask, "Guild leader, when is the guild activity every day? Guild leader, when is the daily quest? Guild leader, what time is the daily quest? Guild leader, where does the guild go to farm gold?" Sword Demon was slightly startled. These questions were all familiar. He was once again standing at a new starting point. Brother, you noticed that Sword Demon seemed to be a little dazed at this time, so he jumped out to answer the question for Sword Demon. "Everyone, don't worry. Our guild has just started. I think everyone knows that we have to merge with the Reborn Amethyst Guild. When the time comes, we will unify the activity plan and details." Everyone listened quietly, but Brother Yu was not excited about this. He was still immersed in the one-day tour of Shuangqing district. At this time, seeing that so many people were listening to him, he could not help but change the topic. "Everyone, do you know? We who have a city district have a huge advantage over those guilds without a city district. As long as the real estate business in the city district is managed well, it is not a dream to make money every day. Is that so?" Of course, the players were happy to be able to make money. Come. Let me give you a brief introduction of the situation in the city district. Brother Yu flipped open his little notebook, his eyebrows dancing as he entered. In a flash, half an hour had passed. Half of the audience was yawning, while the other half were discussing in low voices. "Is this Brother Yu? He is so fucking talkative. I heard that he is just spouting nonsense on the forum. How can a real person talk like this? Can't they stop talking? Damn, how many rooms in the city district? How many are empty? How many are occupied by the guild? And how many are owned by the players? What a talent! I'm impressed." The players exclaimed while they listened painfully to Brother Yu continue to talk non-stop as if there was no one else around. Sword Demon and the others did not disturb him. It had been too long since Brother Yu had such an enjoyable introduction of information to others. The day passed quickly. Gu Fei returned from the suburbs. Afraid that he would be targeted again, he quickly went to the revival point and went offline. On the other hand, Sword Ghost and the others spent the entire day planning the guild's future activities and development. This time, it was not just Sword Demon and the others who discussed it. Players like South Azure Sword, Drifting, and Yun Xiang, who were more familiar than the unfamiliar faces, also participated. Everyone first sorted out the levels and equipment of all the guild members. Then, based on their performance in actual combat, South Azure Sword and the other experts pointed out some players who left a deep impression on them. After that, there were hundreds of people divided into groups to level, do quests, farm gold, practice life skills, and many other things. It was not easy to organize everything. With so many people working through the night, it was even more troublesome than the last time when they sorted out the letters about efficient leveling methods. Moreover, there were already signs of a conflict between them. For example, Drifting was used to being free and undisciplined. He was not interested in some of the guild's activities that were scheduled on time. Another example was South Azure Sword and the others. They were professional players who relied on the game to support themselves. Start a guild? Sure. However, it depended on how much profit the guild could bring in and how much RMB the guild could earn each month. If it was something like continuously leveling up, growing stronger, becoming the #1 guild in Cloud City, and then venturing into the parallel world, they weren't interested in such a thing at all. Therefore, everyone stuck to their own opinions and argued endlessly. After a night, everyone had a headache. As the guild leader, Sword Demon realized that there was still a long way to go in the future. They logged on the next day. The members of Reborn Amethyst and Against the Heavens had already received their rewards. However, if they wanted to merge, they needed to submit an application to the guild building. The current guild leader of Reborn Amethyst, Qianli, was very irresponsibly not online, causing everyone to wait for a long time. In the end, they waited for an entire day. It was only after dinner that Gu Fei calmly logged on. The few days of the citywide war were extremely long. This guy really cared about his physical fitness. Originally, he didn't want to go online for a few days, but the people in the game really couldn't wait any longer. Brother Yu was lucky enough to get Gu Fei's phone when he was doing the efficient leveling method last time. He directly went offline and called Gu Fei. When he heard that everyone was waiting for him, he felt quite embarrassed and immediately went online. The guild building is waiting for you. Sword Demon messaged. Can I give the guild leader position to someone else? Gu Fei asked. See who you can give it to. Sword Demon said. Gu Fei opened the guild list and glanced at it. Each name was more unfamiliar than the last. July and the others that he knew were all gone. Where's July and the others? Gu Fei was surprised. They've already left the guild. Sword Demon said. After the girls of Reborn Amethyst received the citywide war rewards, they had already left the guild. This matter had already been explained to the members of the guild. The girls used to advertise when recruiting new players. Now that the girls were announced to be leaving, many players felt like they had been tricked by a false advertisement. This situation made Sword Demon feel quite awkward, but he respected the girls' choice and braced himself. Although the players felt that it was a pity, in the end, they didn't make too much of a fuss. There were a few strong-willed players who wanted to follow the girls. Fireball recommended them to Eternal Life in Flower Bush. In the end, they hit it off and regretted not meeting each other earlier. Eternal Life in Flower Bush suddenly gained a few more valiant and vulgar men. Although the guild wasn't the same, the people in his friend list were still there. Gu Fei saw that July, Luo Luo and the others were online, so he sent them a message to express his condolences. We're also in the guild building. July replied. After the two guilds merge, we'll use a very overpowered name. Then, I'll register the guild ID of Reborn Amethyst again. How about it, do you want to come back? I think I'll pass. Gu Fei laughed dryly. But the girls unanimously agreed to make you an honorary member of our guild. July said. Really? I've also made a huge contribution. Gu Fei joked. You can say that. July said. Gu Fei chatted with these people as he arrived at the guild building. The scene was livelier than he expected. Looking around, there were hundreds of people from these two guilds. When Gu Fei arrived, the first person to notice him was Fireball. He immediately ran over and told Gu Fei that in order to celebrate the merger of the two guilds, after the merger, everyone would go to the outskirts to hold a bonfire party. The girls of Reborn Amethyst were also invited to participate. That's interesting. Gu Fei laughed dryly. He wanted to quickly go offline and rest after the merger, but now it seemed that it wouldn't be so easy. Why would Sword Demon and the others let him go? Gu Fei wouldn't be unreasonable under such great hospitality. It wasn't like he'd kill all the guys who didn't let him go offline, right? As Gu Fei expected, when he arrived at the building, Sword Demon and the others were there. As soon as they saw him, they immediately came over to talk about the evening event. They were basically informing Gu Fei to participate, not discussing it with him. Gu Fei saw that everyone was extremely excited and was infected by it. He nodded in agreement. After that, he and Sword Demon went to find the NPC in charge of the merger. The system had always been efficient. After the two of them followed the instructions, all the players of the two guilds received a system notification. Reborn Amethyst and Vary Against the Heavens are merging. The new guild is Vary Against the Heavens, Level 4, Guild Leader Sword Demon, 134 members. Oh! Hundreds of players screamed, giving the system notification to boost their morale. At this time, Sword Demon also sent a message in the new guild channel. Vary Against the Heavens is officially formed. Let's go to the wilderness. Then Sword Demon ordered. The bonfire party was the result of a night of negotiations. Considering that the two guilds had been established rather suddenly, the members of these two guilds had been gathered through extraordinary means. As a result, everyone was still unfamiliar with each other. Sword Ghost hoped that through this event everyone would be able to build up their friendship. 134 people was a Vary Against the Heavens number. All the Reborn Amethyst girls who were invited to participate were also present at this time. The total number of people in the team was still approaching 200. The group set off in a grandiose manner outside the city. Everyone in the newly merged guild was having a lively collective discussion in the channel. They were currently complaining about a major problem in the guild, and that was men. The players who discovered this problem pointed out that when they first invited everyone to join the guild, they said that it was a purely female guild. Why was there not a single girl in the entire guild now? This was too big of a contrast. Of course, at this moment, they weren't saying this out of awkwardness. It was already a joke. Therefore, the other players scanned the name list. As expected, there was not a single girl in the entire Very Against the Heavens. Sword Demon was also quite helpless about this matter. Originally, when Brother Yu and July went to recruit new people, although most of the players were male, there were still female players. However, in the end, these female players followed July to join Reborn Amethyst. Not a single one was left, and the Very Against the Heavens became a purely male guild. This was indeed a huge contrast to the previous publicity. Gu Fei was also looking at the chat in the channel. When he saw that there were indeed no girls in the guild, he was quite surprised. He sent a message to Slender Waist Dance. You also returned to Reborn Amethyst? Gu Fei thought that with Slender Waist Dance's personality, she would be more inclined to continue to stay in a guild with fighting spirit like Very Against the Heavens. Of course, but I'm a Very Against the Heavens honorary member, said Slender Waist Dance. What's that? You're an honorary member of Reborn Amethyst. Why can't I be a Very Against the Heavens honorary member? If there's anything fun, you have to let me know. It's a must, said Slender Waist Dance. Gu Fei smiled bitterly. This girl always liked to compare herself to him. Who's that? Where's she, Xiaotian? Did she join your guild too? Gu Fei asked again. She didn't. She left the guild after receiving the reward and went to play on her own, said Slender Waist Dance. Gu Fei looked at his friends list. Shi Xiaotian was online. He wanted to ask, but he didn't know what to say. In the end, he could only give up. He then asked about the strange pupil sisters. As expected, the two sisters didn't want to leave their old friends in Xia Fog City. They returned home first, saying that they would think about it before making a decision. What a shame, said Gu Fei. Yeah. Slender Waist Dance also sighed. It'll be very inconvenient to borrow rings in the future, said Gu Fei. You're inhumane. Slender Waist Dance thought that he was reminiscing about his old comrades, but this guy was actually thinking about the girl's mana loop. It was noisy all the way out of the main city. Although it was evening in the real world, the sun was shining brightly in the game. It was a bit of a joke to call it a bonfire party because night would only come in 2 hours, and the duration of the night was only 2 hours. Because of this, everyone didn't care about the details. When they arrived at the chosen place, Sword Demon used the method of PvP to command the players to split into groups. There were those who set up fires, those who killed monsters for meat. Gu Fei looked around. How was this a bonfire party? Wasn't it more like a barbecue in the wild? Of course, no one dared to order Gu Fei around. He was happy to have nothing to do, so he wandered around. Later, he came across the South Wandering Sword 7. These 7 guys seemed to often participate in these kinds of activities. They seemed to be experts in doing these kinds of things. When they saw Gu Fei, the 7 of them came over and asked about the reward that Gu Fei had received. It's really a good reward. Flaming Jacket commented. Hiring a hitman to kill, luring the other party into PvP, then searching for the target's name and coordinates. Killing the target once, you'll lose 2 levels. Twice, you'll lose 4 levels. This is too fucking inhumane. We should take the wanted quest and send him to prison, wasting his precious time to punish him, right? Flaming Jacket was halfway through her speech when she noticed that Gu Fei's expression wasn't right. She quickly changed her topic. She was quite quick-witted. On the other hand, South Sword 7 sighed deeply and said, Actually, I want to know how our guild is going to develop. Chapter 777. Oh! Gu Fei could tell that Azure Sword had something to say. Compared to the other players, the 7 of them were clearly calmer. They did not seem to be in high spirits. The purpose of the 7 of us playing the game is different from theirs. Wandering Azure Sword said as he gazed at the excited gamers. He couldn't help but sigh. In the past, I thought it was blissful to have a hobby become a job. But after doing it for a long time, I realized that hobbies and jobs shouldn't be confused. When hobbies become jobs, they take on too much pressure. The fun that they once had as hobbies gradually disappeared. Are you talking about playing games? Gu Fei asked. Azure Sword nodded. There's nothing to play games. Gu Fei agreed seriously. The 7 of them were speechless. The players in the game, including Sword Demon and the others who were close to Gu Fei, would often stop talking to Gu Fei. If there's nothing to play games, what are you playing? Horini could not help but ask. I'm not here to play games. Are you here to do nothing? Horini interrupted Gu Fei impulsively. No. Gu Fei shook his head. I'm here to beat people up. The conversation paused again. In fact, even in the real world, there were many people who suddenly stopped talking to Gu Fei. Beat people up? Azure Sword thought that they were rude enough to rob people. He did not expect that there would be people who would beat people up. Beating people up is a vulgar way of saying it. Seriously speaking, it's to find a place for me to use my kung fu. I can't beat people up on the streets, right? I can do a wanted mission in the game. I thought you guys knew? Gu Fei thought that this group of people should know his mentality in the game. Oh, I know. The 7 of them wiped their sweat. They knew that, but they did not understand why Gu Fei suddenly said, beating people up. Yes, I remember saying that, Gu Fei said. I did. The 7 of them said in unison. In the end, they were all stunned. Weren't they discussing their problems with Gu Fei? Why did they suddenly change the topic to the other party? Southern Azure Sword was the leader of the 7 players and the main speaker of the conversation. At this moment, he hurriedly stepped forward and handed a skewer to Gu Fei while forcefully changing the topic. How do you plan to deal with this guild? Guild? I don't know. I don't understand. As Gu Fei spoke, he squatted in front of the fire to roast the meat. As he roasted, he turned around and asked, Can I roast it like this? I don't have life skills. Sure. Southern Azure Sword nodded. Even without skills, players can still do this on their own. Only, the meat you roast won't have the same attributes as their cooking skills. Oh, Gu Fei replied. He focused back on the meat and rolled around the fire. Southern Azure Sword was about to continue the topic when Gu Fei suddenly said, Who cut this meat? Southern Azure Sword was startled. He turned around and saw Blackwater come over. He was also confused. I cut it. What's wrong? His technique is really rough. Look at this cut. In the beginning, he relied too much on his finger strength. Halfway through, his strength wasn't enough, so he started to add in his wrist strength. That's why the front part of the cut was shaky. After adding in his wrist strength, it naturally became smoother. Actually, this isn't enough. Just relying on the human body is far from enough. As the saying goes, strength comes from the ground. Boss, what are you talking about? The 7 of them were stunned. I'm talking about your meat, Gu Fei said. You're talking about the meat? Aren't you talking about strength? Blackwater said. I'm talking about your strength from this piece of meat. Did I say something wrong? Gu Fei asked. I'm ashamed. I've tried very hard to remember, but I really can't remember if I used finger strength or wrist strength when I cut this piece of meat. Blackwater said. That's normal. Gu Fei nodded. After all, you haven't received systematic training. This might be a very small detail that you might not even notice. Blackwater couldn't continue and looked at the other 6 with a pleading expression. Jiannan wanted to talk about the main topic twice, but he was led astray by Gu Fei. This was the 3rd time, so he decided to go all out. He took a deep breath and said, What we mean is that we need to earn money in the game to support ourselves. But now that we've joined a heaven-defying guild, it's obvious that the game's entertainment is more important. So, we want to know if there's a suitable way for us to earn money in the future. For example, setting up a studio and teaching efficiency leveling. If there isn't, even though we want to play with everyone in the guild, we have to think of a way to survive. Jiannan finished speaking in one breath. Gu Fei was dumbfounded. After a long time, he opened his mouth wide and said, "So fast? What did you just say?" Ken and Yu almost spat blood on Gu Fei's face, but Gu Fei was finally concerned about the question of, "What did you say?" Dao Xiangmu rushed forward and took over Ken and Yu's task, repeating the situation that he had just said. "You're talking about this?" Gu Fei nodded. "That's right, but I don't know much about the guild. What did Sword Demon and the others say?" Them? Jianan and the others looked a little sad. "We had some communication last night, but it didn't go well. In fact, we know that people like us are more utilitarian in the game, while Boss Sword Ghoul and the others are here purely for the fun of the game. They are the kind of people who truly love the game. People like us who rely on the game to earn money might be a waste of the game to them." Boss Sword Demon said that the current focus is on how to expand the guild. He didn't seem to care about the benefits that we brought up. "I know that this isn't suitable, but we have no choice. Us brothers have to eat. There should still be a lot of money from the efficiency leveling method, right?" Gu Fei said. "That's a lot, enough for us to sustain for a while. But this game is our livelihood, so we still hope to know a clear future. That way, we'll feel more at ease," Jianan said. "Don't worry," Gu Fei said. "I think it's not that Sword Demon doesn't care, he just hasn't thought of how to deal with it. This is his first time creating a guild in this game. We're all friends, and the Sword Ghost will definitely think for his friends," Gu Fei said as he passed the roasted meat to Jianan. Jian Nanyo's face was a little doubtful. He took the meat that Gu Fei handed over and took a bite. After chewing twice, he felt that something was wrong. He took it away from his mouth and looked at it, saying, "It's not cooked." "Really? Then roast it again." Gu Fei took the meat from Jianan's hands and flipped it over the fire again. Jianan hurriedly spat out the meat in his mouth and asked, "Do you know how to roast?" "I know a little." Gu Fei said that his knowledge came from Coward's Savior. He had roasted meat with Coward's Savior once and vaguely remembered rolling and rolling like this. "Let me do it?" Blackwater stepped forward. "No, I'll try again." Gu Fei continued to focus on roasting the meat. The 7 of them were afraid and wanted to move away quietly. However, Gu Fei was very observant and immediately noticed. He pointed at Jianan and said, "Don't go. You can only eat it. You've already bitten it." Jianan burst into tears. "You've already tricked me once. Why don't you let me go? No wonder you're the #1 assassin in the game. You're very skilled in killing people regardless of whether you use a knife or not. You're trying to make me suffer." The other 6 looked at Jianan with a tragic look in their eyes. Jianan felt that he couldn't die in vain. He had to ask more questions, so he came back and asked, "Do we still want to continue our high-efficiency leveling method business?" This business was very profitable. Jianan and the others had tasted the sweetness of it. They only hated that they didn't have this skill. Otherwise, they wouldn't care about the city war and would have wandered around to sell their skills. Gu Fei nodded. "Then, you guys should really talk to that encyclopedic statesman guy more. He's likely to be using games to earn money. You guys can work together to manage this project." "What about you?" Jianan asked. The other 6 were also listening. They weren't familiar with Bai Jingluan. They were friends with Gu Fei from an enemy. They admired not only Gu Fei's skills but also Gu Fei's character. Especially when Gu Fei didn't take a big cut after he made money. Of course, the employees liked such a boss. "Me? I don't need this to make a living. I'm just playing," said Gu Fei. At first, he didn't have the intention to make money from this. The idea was all Bai Jingluan's. Gu Fei was forced to do something beyond his ability. "I see." Jianan nodded and began to think about how to communicate with Bai Jingluan. However, Glu suddenly pointed and said, "Hey, speak of the devil." Everyone looked in that direction and saw Bai Jingluan. Not only him, but there were also people from Forest Shade City, such as Shui Shen and Lu Ku, who were greeting Sword Demon and the others. "You finally established a guild again. How can I not come over to congratulate you?" Shui Shen's voice floated over with the wind. Then he saw Han family young master. Shui Shen, who was smiling, immediately gritted his teeth and said, "I heard that someone was causing trouble on the opposite side during the city war? How do you still have the face to stand here? Tisk, childish. The young master of the Han family casually spat out these 3 words, angering Shuai-Nan half to death. Without waiting for Shuai-Nan to argue, he walked to the side. Yo, Cloud City's #1 trap technician, you're here too. Shuai-Shan saw that Han family young master had run away, so he continued to greet people. Suddenly he saw someone and immediately shouted. Gu Fei was startled. He quickly got up and looked around. From the direction where Shuai-Shan's gaze was pointing, he found Tsubasa Sakaratsuka's figure. If this guy was here, the people from Eternal Life Among Flowers were probably here too. If that was the case, the girls would be in danger. Gu Fei quickly looked around to see where the girls were caught by the trap, but he saw that Fireball was already rubbing over. Brother Zue, what are you looking for? Are Eternal Life Among Flowers all here? Gu Fei said. They're here, but Brother Zue, don't worry. They won't dare to mess around. Messing around like this is not giving face to you and Boss Sword Demon. Fireball said. Although Sword Demon had always been the boss of the guild, it was clear that in Fireball's mind, Gu Fei was always the leader. When the two were mentioned, Gu Fei was always ranked first. This was the difference between the two. Then what are they doing? Gu Fei looked around but didn't see Eternal Life Among Flowers. He only saw Tsubasa Sakaratsuka barbecuing meat next to a bonfire. Trying to hit on a girl. Fireball said. Gu Fei was speechless. Didn't you say you wouldn't mess around? How is hitting on a girl messing around? Brother Zu, look, I'm hitting on you right now. Am I messing around? Fireball said. When have you ever not messed around? Gu Fei said. Brother Zue, you really are my boss. You know your little brother too well. Fireball flattered. Gu Fei couldn't take this attack either. His hand trembled and the meat fell into the bonfire. Fireball hurriedly tried to save it, but was stopped by South Harmony. Forget it, just change to another skewer. While they were talking, Water Depth and the others had just arrived at the bonfires and walked around to where Gu Fei and the others were. After greeting each other, 100 Lives Jingluan bragged to Gu Fei about how impressive he was in the city war. Gu Fei listened and smiled faintly. He only said, that's because I wasn't defending the city. 100 Lives Jingluan was so depressed that he wanted to die. However, his martial arts were far from Gu Fei's, and the honest 100 Lives Jingluan wouldn't deny this. Gu Fei said and pointed at South Harmony's group of 7. These brothers were just asking about the leveling method business. In the future, you'll have to work together with them. You guys should plan it out. South Harmony saw that Gu Fei was taking the initiative to help them and was very happy. He immediately pulled 100 Lives Jingluan over to plan it out. But 100 Lives Jingluan seemed to suddenly remember something. He turned his head and said to Water Depth, you still haven't paid me for the city war. Yes, I have to. I'll collect it and send it to you later. Water Depth said. 100 Lives Jingluan nodded in satisfaction. South Harmony's group of 7 was even more elated. They really liked 100 Lives Jingluan's character of valuing profits. But to Sword Demon and the other experts, talking about money seemed to be a shameful and hurtful thing. South Harmony and the others didn't agree with this. The 7+1 quickly found a common language about making money and discussed the big plan together. Only Water Depth, Lu Ku, and Gu Fei were left by the bonfire. Not bad. You showed off again in the city war. Water Depth and Gu Fei weren't familiar with each other, but since this person greeted Tsubasa Sakaratsuka like that, it was obvious that he was naturally familiar with others. When he talked to Gu Fei, he didn't treat him as an outsider anymore. It's just so, Gu Fei said modestly. At this moment, another person walked over from the side. Gu Fei saw him and greeted him with a smile. It's Manager Ling. Why you here? Don't call me that. It sounds weird. Ling Gufeng hurriedly said, I heard that your 2 guilds merged and came here to celebrate. I'm here to congratulate you. I even chose a few brothers. They're all good at barbecuing. As expected of human resources. Gu Fei gave a thumbs up. But you'll have to ask our guild leader. He's over there. Gu Fei pointed at Sword Demon to Ling Gufeng. Then I'll go over. This way please. Ling Gufeng greeted Water Depth and Lu Ku, who he didn't know, and then went to find Sword Demon. Water Depth's expression was a bit unfriendly. He looked at Ling Gufeng's back and said, "This person is? He's from the studio. He's called Ling Gufeng. He helped us a lot in the city war." Gu Fei knew that Water Depth wasn't friendly toward studios, but he still told him the truth. "Oh, which studio?" Water Depth asked. "Do you know Cloud Ting Studio?" Gu Fei said, "Oh, Cloud Ting, I know. It's a new studio that rose up in the past few years. Their reputation is pretty good, but now studios are very focused on this aspect. Those with bad records can't survive. Reputation doesn't mean anything. Moreover, it's a new studio, so they naturally have to do some fake work." "Is that so? Of course, they are not good people, right?" Gu Fei laughed. "I can't say for sure, but I believe one thing." Water Depth said. "What?" "All crows in the world are black." Water Depth said. "Oh." After hearing this, Gu Fei looked at Ling Gufeng's back thoughtfully. Although this person gave him a good impression, 5 Nights also gave him a very deep impression. Water Depth continued to fan the flames. "Look, the distribution of the city districts after the city war is really a super big cake. I think the studios want all of the districts under their control. During the city war, they must have put in a lot of effort. I think every main city has more or less districts under the control of the guilds controlled by the studios. Only you guys, your Cloud City, actually came up with the idea of the defending players defeating the attacking players. Those studios that invested in the city war definitely ate a blow this time. They'll definitely target you guys. Of course, it's not about revenge, it's mainly for business. The situation in your Cloud City district is much more profitable than the other main cities. Especially now that you guys have merged, the districts owned by the players in Cloud City are all in the hands of one guild. How advantageous is this? And it's also convenient to operate here. Other main cities, like our Forest Shade, our Extreme Frost got a district. Apart from us, a total of 17 guilds got the district reward. Speaking of this, I get angry. We got more than 300 points in the city battle, but we only gave it to one city district. Those bastards only got 100 or 2 points. How can it be a city district? Is there any justice in this world? We're off topic. Lu Ku said heavily from the side. "Oh, back to the studio. You see, each district of our main cities wants to develop, so there's competition between them. Only your main cities don't have it at all. You guys are the only ones. This is a monopoly. Of course, there are those districts that are not controlled by the players, but I can guarantee that in the future, whether it's real estate or business, the districts controlled by the players will be the center. How can the rigid mechanical model of the system be a match for the players? Now, do you understand how big a cake you have in your hands?" Water Depth said. Chapter 778. Gu Fei did not fully understand Shuai's long speech, but to show his politeness, he nodded along the way. Shuai looked at Gu Fei's enlightened expression and was naturally very satisfied. He nodded and said, "So, you must be careful. There's no good in this studio." Gu Fei looked at Ling Gufeng, who was talking to Sword Demon, and couldn't help but feel a little strange. If this guy had other intentions, then he was really a guy who was more sinister and cunning than 5 Nights. I don't know if this guy has ulterior motives, but I'm sure that there will be studios that will come to take your cake. Even if it's not Cloud Ting, there will always be other studios. Shuai saw that Gu Fei was paying attention to Ling Gufeng, so he came over and added, "Why don't we go and listen to what they're talking about?" Gu Fei suggested. "Okay." Shuai accepted happily. So, the 3 of them also went over to Sword Demon and Ling Gufeng. Seeing the 3 of them coming over, Sword Demon and Ling Gufeng greeted them casually and continued their topic. They had no intention of avoiding it. Brother Yu and the others were also at the side at this time, listening to Sword Demon and Ling Gufeng's conversation with a serious expression. Gu Fei and Shuai didn't say anything. They listened quietly for a while and roughly understood. Gu Fei breathed a sigh of relief. Just like what Deepwater had said, all studios would be envious of Against the Heavens. Right now, Against the Heavens controlled the 6 districts of Cloud City, and Cloud Soaring Studio was no exception. However, at the very least, Cloud Soaring Studio didn't have any backstabbing schemes. They had sent Wind of the Valley over to cooperate with Against the Heavens. And the content of the cooperation was to help conquer the districts. Currently, the system had awarded the management rights of 6 city districts to Very Defiant. However, managing these 6 city districts wasn't an easy task. It would take a lot of time and effort to get on the right track. Moreover, Very Defiant was a newly established guild. Its foundation wasn't solid, and its members weren't yet united. Moreover, after the city war, even if the other guilds didn't say anything, they would definitely treat Very Defiant as a public enemy. They would think of ways to suppress Very Defiant, both in the open and in the shadows. Very Defiant's current situation was really a coexistence of opportunities and challenges. They had the deterrence of Qianli and the economic support of the districts, but at the same time, there were many internal and external troubles. Ling Gufeng saw this point and hoped to cooperate with Very Defiant. He wanted their studio to help Very Defiant take control of the districts. Ling Gufeng proposed many detailed terms and details. Obviously, he came prepared. After listening to him patiently, the Sword Ghost expressed that he couldn't make up his mind at the moment and needed to think about it. Of course, this topic was much more relaxed. There was no need to hesitate over such a small matter. After Sword Demon asked the barbecue masters about the price, the 2 sides happily carried out a small cooperation. Of course, this topic was much more relaxed. There was no need to hesitate over such a small matter. After Sword Demon asked the barbecue masters about the price, the 2 sides happily carried out a small cooperation. What do you think? Gu Fei asked Shueisha quietly. How depressing. This Ling Gufeng's opinion is very similar to mine. I also think that the reward of 6 districts is too much for you. I also went around the districts in the afternoon. Even our level 6 guilds might not be able to take care of everything. Your level 4 guilds are all new and unfamiliar. It's impossible for you to take care of 6 districts at once. Shueisha said. How are we going to take care of this district? Gu Fei didn't understand. This is something you don't understand. There's a brother in our guild who specifically told me about this in the afternoon. He said that the main cities in the game can only be said to have completed the layout of the buildings. Most of the buildings are empty. The system's previous operations were all done by the players, but now it's managed by the players. In order to maximize the benefits, we should consider integration, economy, safety, aesthetics, society, etc. This is the discipline of city planning. It's knowledge, understand? Shueisha said. Of course not. Do you understand? Gu Fei said. I don't understand either, but someone in our guild does. He's excitedly planning our district right now. Shueisha said proudly. You guys call that a district? It's just a village. It wasn't that Gu Fei hadn't been to Shady Forest City before. That city didn't even have city walls. The entire tribe in the forest talked about it as if it was a city. So you see, each city's geographical conditions, player quality, level, class distribution, and economic conditions are all different. We need to be realistic and do a good job of planning. This way, the construction of our district can develop in a healthy direction. Shueisha said. That's what your brothers said, right? Gu Fei said. Of course. You sure have a good memory. Gu Fei worshipped. This kind of concept and vocabulary was completely unfamiliar to outsiders like them. To be able to remember it after hearing it once was quite amazing. However, Shueisha scratched his head and said, Memory my ass. I read it to you according to the chat log. Is it really that exaggerated? Gu Fei said. Amateurs join in on the fun, but experts know the ropes. Shueisha said. I agree with what you said. Gu Fei nodded his head. He had been watched as a bystander many times. Basically no one could appreciate his PvP skills. When everyone mentioned Qianli, it was equipment, damage, and instant kills. Gu Fei was speechless. After listening Gully and Sword Demon finish their discussion, they weren't in a hurry to leave. They continued to stay and interact with the very overpowered players. At this time, the sky in the game gradually darkened and slowly turned into night. The bonfires of the players' barbecued meat finally began to become dazzling. Everyone chased after the light and gradually formed small circles around the bonfires. Sword Demon commanded the people and quickly raised a huge bonfire. The fire was so hot that people who were 5 meters away were sweating profusely. They couldn't get any closer and could only rely on throwing firewood. With a call, all the players began to gather around the big bonfire and formed a large circle. The blazing firewood reflected the night sky and the atmosphere became more and more lively. As the guild leader, Sword Demon, of course, had to speak at this time, but Sword Demon obviously wasn't an expert at controlling the atmosphere. The words he said seemed to be good, but when he called Sword Demon, it was as serious as a report. Brother Yu's face was full of tears. It was really a waste of the words he had painstakingly collected to host the bonfire party. Sword Demon finally finished reciting the words and let out a sigh of relief. Of course, he knew very well that he couldn't take on this big responsibility, so he quickly handed it over to Brother Yu. Brother Yu was naturally much more lively than Sword Demon. In addition, he was also well prepared. After coming out, he spoke wittily and quickly brought up the atmosphere. Yutian Shenming and Unscathed in Battle also came out one after the other, making jokes and looking down on each other, which also caused bursts of laughter. Of course, the theme of the party wouldn't be the talk show of these three guys. Brother Yu quickly flipped through his small notebook and recorded a number of games that he had found suitable for the bonfire party. However, because there were too many, it made it difficult for Brother Yu to choose. He only felt that this was good, but it was a pity not to play that. He really wanted to play all of them, but the night in the game only had 2 hours, so it was very urgent. Therefore, Brother Yu was a democracy. He said a few game names and asked everyone what they wanted to play first. There was a lot of cheering, and everyone expressed that the program they wanted to see the most was Qianli getting drunk and killing people instantly. Gu Fei felt that it was hard to refuse their hospitality, so he stood up and swung his sword a few times, indicating that it was not a problem to kill people instantly. The key was that no one would be killed instantly by him, so he had to perform a set of swordsmanship. The players applauded loudly, but Gu Fei knew very well that it was a waste to perform something profound for these guys, so he catered to what they liked. His moves were not reasonable in terms of attack and defense, but only fast and cool. After playing for a while, the response was really enthusiastic. Only Master of the 100 Realms looked at the players around him blankly and applauded crazily. He thought to himself, what is this? Is it because I'm not skilled enough and can't see through it? But why are so many ordinary players able to see through it? Brother Yu was inspired, so he put the game aside for the time being and asked if anyone else was willing to perform. There were shy and introverted players among the players, but there were also a large number of people who loved to show off. When Brother Yu asked, many people jumped out to perform. Some performed songs, some danced, some performed magic, and some imitated the show. The atmosphere became higher and higher, and as the core of the guild, Sword Demon and the others were very happy. It's really good to have this kind of activity every few days, Sword Demon said as he looked at a warrior who was dancing in the circle as if he was having a cramp. Right now we don't have many people, but when we become a level 6 guild with 1,000 people, I'm afraid it won't be so easy to organize, Brother Yu said. That's still early. We'll talk about it later, Sword Demon said. Brother Yu nodded in agreement, but unexpectedly, Yu Tianshanming's expression changed at this time. It seems that there are a lot of people coming this way. Sword Demon was startled when he heard this. East, south, west, north, there are people in all directions. Yu Tianshanming looked in all 4 directions and confirmed that there were no mistakes. Sword Demon and the others didn't have eagle eyes, and their eyesight was a bit worse than Yu Tianshanming's. Although they were pointed out, they still didn't see anyone. However, there was a problem that had to be pointed out. Yutian, the order you looked at just now was south, north, west, and east. Why are you still talking about this at a time like this? Yu Tianshanming rarely criticized others for mocking him for having a bad sense of direction. I think they don't have good intentions. Guild Sharpshooter, pay attention to the surroundings. Sword Demon issued an order in the guild channel at this time. The The players who were still in a joyous atmosphere were startled, and then immediately thought that this was a new game. The sharpshooter players all stood up and looked around. There are so many people. The sharpshooter players finally noticed the situation. The players present weren't just OP players either. Purple Crystal Rebirth and Eternal Life Among Flowers, these two guilds were supposed to be at loggerheads, but right now, they were both OP players VIPs in a very inharmonious manner. Boundless Mang heard the waves of shouts and hurriedly took out her binoculars. It was night time, but the game company didn't want the players to not want to go online because of the dark, so they made the moonlight especially bright. Although it wasn't as bright as daytime, it was enough to maintain basic lighting. There are people coming and a lot of them. Boundless Mang confirmed. Chapter 779. How much is a lot? Sword Demon and the others all knew about the binoculars in the vast wilderness. When they needed to confirm the reconnaissance, they had already taken the initiative to find her. It's all people. We seem to have been surrounded. This number of people is definitely not from one or two guilds. I guess it should be the guilds that were defeated in the city war. Now they are gathering to retaliate against you. Of course, the vast wilderness was very rich in battle experience. Damn it, no manners at all. Zhan Wushang expressed his anger. This kind of thing was like being willing to gamble but not admitting defeat. It was very tasteless. This is a challenge. Sword Demon's expression was solemn. The target of public criticism. This is the current situation of our guild. We must not retreat from this battle. Once we show weakness, then the players in Cloud City will know that very overpowered. Although we are in charge of 6 districts, joining them is not a good thing. In this battle, we might be annihilated, but we must make these guys pay an even more painful price. We must let the players of Cloud City know that killing a heaven-defying monster is definitely not a happy thing. At this critical moment, Sword Demon's speech was not as superficial as his speech at the bonfire party. Every word he said was very clear and went straight to the hearts of the people. When the players present heard it, they all had a thought in their hearts. That's right. We must not let anyone think that we are easy to bully. Even if we die, we must make the opponent feel afraid because we will not die for nothing. Boss Sword Demon said it well. Someone shouted, followed by a round of applause and roars that pierced the night sky. This night's gathering actually reached its peak at this time. And the one who brought up the atmosphere this time was Sword Demon, who always looked a bit dull on other occasions. According to the arrangement of the city war, arrange the battle team. Sword Demon ordered. The team was quickly formed. The city war had just ended a day ago, and the players still remembered the team arrangement at that time. Try to break through, seize the initiative, and then turn around to give them a painful blow. Sword Demon said. The players cheered in response. At this moment, the players surrounding them finally appeared in everyone's vision. Prince Han walked up to Boundless Mang and extended his hand towards her. Although the Han family young master would return it quickly after using it, the frequency of him lending it out was too high. Frankly speaking, he felt that he was the one who borrowed it. Even so, Mang still handed the binoculars to the Han family young master. The Han family young master raised his binoculars and looked around. He immediately sent a message in the channel. The distance is about 200 meters. The enemies are standing 1 meter apart. The thickness of their formation is about 10 people. Their numbers are estimated to be between 12,000 to 15,000 people. The closer we are, the thicker the formation will be. The earlier we break out, the better. Everyone hurry up, shouted the Sword Demon. Warriors at the front, mages at the back. Han family young master said. Priest in the center, knight in the back, Sword Demon said. Archers, flanks. Thieves, go into stealth and scatter. Why are there 2 people commanding? The OP players were confused as they whispered to each other. But the orders are coherent, or maybe they complement each other. Everyone was confused, but still did as they were told. 2 people commanding, huh? Lu Ku and Deepwater heard the discussions of the OP players and smiled at each other. What a familiar memory, but we won't be able to hear it. Lu Ku expressed her regret. But we can still help out. Deepwater had already pulled out his bow and arrows as he sent a message to the sword demon. There should be a few teams feigning an attack, right? It'll be best if they can make it more chaotic. They're already doing that. Are you and Ku going to lead a team too? Asked the sword demon. Sure. But will they listen to orders? Asked Deepwater. Of course, it's a new guild. Sword demon said. Deepwater understood what he meant. In a new guild, the members weren't familiar with each other, so the guild leader could only directly appoint the team leader. Everyone didn't know the strength of the team leader, so there was no need to be convinced. Deepwater quickly received a team invitation. After entering the team, the other party had already handed him the position of team leader. Then he heard exclamations in the channel. Ah? Deepwater? Is it that Deepwater? The one who used to be one of the 5 roaches? Deepwater calmly said, That's me. Everyone cried out in shock. Keep pretending. There were still some who disagreed. Who's this? Question marks everywhere. My wife. Deepwater said with a bitter face. Hello, sister-in-law. This time, there were greetings everywhere. In online games, an expert was the big brother, and an expert's wife was obviously his sister-in-law. Our target is towards the east. Everyone listen up, we'll be moving towards the direction of the breakthrough at any time. Deepwater said. Understood. When the players in the team saw that their team leader was an expert, they were naturally even more convinced. Prepare the trap towards the west. Boundless, you go with the main team. You won't be able to keep up with our speed. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka said to Boundless Mang as he led the team out. Boundless Mang nodded his head. He went to the main team with warriors and mages. Although the main team's mobility was a bit lacking, their firepower was the fiercest. Our target is towards the south. Is everyone's ammunition ready? Imperial Sky Divine Ming, as the leader, was also giving out instructions. Reporting, team leader. You're heading towards the north. I know. I'm just talking right now. Do I have to head south? Yutian Shenming turned 180 degrees and didn't panic. Team formation complete. Distance 150 meters from the enemy. Prepare to move out. We'll engage in combat before 100 meters. Sword Demon ordered. His words sounded a bit wrong, but everyone understood what he meant. The distance of 100 meters referred to the distance between the encirclement and the center of the circle. 4 teams moved out at the same time. Water Depth, Tsubasa Sakuratsuka, and Yutian Shenming were all agile teams of around 20 people. They were very mobile and their goal wasn't to kill or injure the opponent, but to let the opponent know of their existence. They couldn't let these teams deal a strong blow to the main team to achieve the goal of dividing the opponent's strength. But at this time, after the 4 teams moved out, the opponent also quickly made adjustments. The goal of these 3 faint teams was seen through by the opponent. The opponent continued to shrink the encirclement while starting to move. The defense in the east, south, and west gradually became thinner. The center of gravity was clearly converging towards the north where Sword Demon's main team was. The plan has been seen through. Water Depth hurriedly sent a message to Sword Demon. The feint team could only do feints. With their pure profession, although they faced the opponent's weak defense, they had no way of breaking out. Such a simple plan. It's not surprising that it was seen through. Sword Demon said. What do you have up your sleeves? Water Depth asked. Actually, our team is also a feint team. Sword Demon said. What? The opponent has seen through our plan. They will naturally withdraw their forces towards our side, so your defense will be weak. Sword Demon said. Weak is weak, but we. Water Depth suddenly paused. The 3 feint teams had few people and their professions were thin. It seemed like they didn't have the strength to turn into the main team, but if someone was there, you can break out. Sword Demon said in the channel. Got it. Yutian Shenming responded and the entire team began to advance. The archers released arrows, but it caused a burst of laughter from the surrounding opponents. These 20 or so archers, what other tricks did they want to play? The leading player in charge of this team lazily waved his hand, and the heavy warriors immediately went forward to cover. The opponents were all archers, so there was no need to play long-range shooting with them. Since they wanted to break out of the encirclement, they had to rush to the front. If the archers rushed to the front, then what were they? At that time, they would be at our mercy. The leading player calculated proudly. Seeing the opponents approach, the nearby warriors and thieves were all excited and ready to work. A figure appeared without any warning. There was clearly a distance of 6 meters, but it was as if this person didn't exist. This person had suddenly appeared in the encirclement of the players. A flash of fire flashed around him. He seemed to have turned twice, and after 2 revolutions, a circle of white light rose. It's him! The leading player knew who this person was the moment before he was killed. He was very depressed. The encirclement was so big, but why did he have to meet him? At the same time, he was very clear that with this person, this thin defense wouldn't be able to hold on. Qianli drunk is breaking out from the south. The encirclement of players quickly spread this news. It's okay, let him break out. Qianli drunk isn't all of them. There are more guys that have been surrounded by us. The leaders surrounding the players' commands seemed to have expected this situation, so they didn't seem too flustered. Take care of Qianli drunk? Even 1,000 people wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Although they had more people at the moment, in terms of quality, they really couldn't compare to singing to drinking. Therefore, getting drunk from 1,000 miles away wasn't on their agenda in the first place. Moreover, their goal wasn't Qianli drunk. Although Qianli drunk was the main culprit who destroyed the victory of the attacking players, at this moment, all the players were more jealous of the reward of the city battle. The reward of Qianli drunk, something like searching the name of a wanted player, frightened the players, but from a reward point of view, it was very balanced. They all felt that this was really a trash reward. Giving Qianli drunk was a blessing from the heavens. But it was very overpowered. After combining, they actually monopolized the reward of 6 city districts. It was really intolerable. Perhaps everyone had such a mentality, but this group of players was using it as motivation to vent their anger on Roland. They needed to vent, otherwise they wouldn't be able to sleep at night. The medium of online games made it even easier for them to vent their frustrations. Other than suffering from some spit, there didn't seem to be any consequences. Moreover, if they killed very overpowered, the players in Cloud City would probably clap their hands in joy, right? Don't worry about Qianli drunk. Hurry up and kill all the overpowered people, kill them all. The guild leaders who came to surround very overpowered were all shouting crazily in their guild channel. Chapter 780. Don't worry about Qianli's drunk. This was the order given by most of the guild leaders, but there was one guild leader who didn't think so at all. If Qianli's drunk broke out of the encirclement and swaggered away, of course they didn't need to worry about it. However, the real situation was that Qianli's drunk didn't do so at all, and he didn't seem to have any intention of doing so. He teleported into the encirclement, and after killing a circle with 1 slash, his people also began to run in circles. The encirclement was in chaos. They had thought of people breaking out from the inside, and people breaking out from the outside, but they had never heard of people breaking out from the encirclement in circles like this. The encirclement was based on guilds. The guild leader, who happened to be attacked by Gu Fei, completely disagreed with the decision of, don't worry about Qianli's drunk. He really wanted to, but he didn't have the ability to. He was only leading a small level 2 guild with 74 people. There were only 34 people participating in this encirclement, which was a very, very small part of the encirclement. This guild leader originally thought that they had the advantage in numbers. Although they were few in number, they could still follow along and vent the depression in their hearts. Who would have thought that they would be so unlucky and bump into Qianli's drunk? Forget about venting their depression, they immediately lost a level and returned to the spawn point to continue feeling depressed. This guild leader hadn't even finished his mental process when Gu Fei had already killed his way to his side. Gu Fei wasn't alone at this time. From the moment he killed his way into the enemy encirclement, the archers led by Yutian Shenming had also been supporting him from the outside. This group of people were far away, constantly shooting arrows. Yutian Shenming found that this group of opponents was somewhat frighteningly weak. He even directly killed a person with one snipe. This was a phenomenon that hadn't happened for a long time. To be killed by Yutian Shenming in one shot, this might be a difference of 10 levels. Damn, come and help. We're almost killed by Qianli's drunk. The players who had been defeated by Gu Fei were screaming. They didn't have the consciousness of sacrificing themselves to hold Qianli's drunk back. This time, they came to vent their anger and never thought of sacrificing themselves, let alone sacrificing a level. At this time, seeing that Qianli couldn't resist at all, they desperately called for support. The players on the left and right were from other guilds. At this time, seeing Qianli's drunk's ferocity, they couldn't even hide. Who would come to help this ally? There was only one thought in everyone's mind: even 1,000 people can't stop drunken singing. Aren't we just sending ourselves to our deaths? The encirclement that Gu Fei faced at first was dispersed by his killing, but later became dispersed by his fear. The surrounding players shouted loudly, "Qianli's drunk is coming." Wherever they went, formations and positions didn't exist. Wherever they were further from Qianli's drunk, that was in the opposite direction of Qianli's drunk, all the players ran in that direction. Front line changes, back line changes, back line changes, retreat. At this time, Sword Demon also issued orders in the team. The main force he led rushed forward with an aggressive look, causing the other side to gather people and prepare for battle. Who knew that just as they were about to enter attack range, they suddenly turned around and left without a second's delay. Chase, don't let them escape. Some guild leaders thought that Qianli's drunk had already opened up an opening, and these guys wanted to pick up the ready-made gains and escape from that direction. With this order, the speed-type professions were full of vigor and immediately pounced forward. But Sword Demon's team didn't panic at all. After the front line changed, it was now the warrior and mage teams that covered the back line. The agility professions didn't even get to them before a few spells smashed down and more than half of them died in an instant. Drifting in the formation shook his head repeatedly. Noob, most of these players are noob, a bunch of mobs. Pay attention to the left. Azure Sword shouted. The other side's encirclement wasn't just from one direction. At this time, they were closing in and catching up. There were people all around them. The mages only blasted the pursuers in front, but there were people on the left already. In the end, the figures of several thieves suddenly flashed out from the flank. With a wave of stabbing, all the rash players who rushed up were killed. The thieves were very agile. Without stealth to hide, they retreated into the formation to cool down. The mages also changed the direction of their attacks and blasted in the direction of the remaining enemies. Actually, even if we charge, we might still be able to kill our way out, Azure Sword said. Let's not be careless. How could Sword Demon not see that the other side's players were relatively low level? But because of this, Sword Demon felt that they had to be more cautious. If they were really wiped out by such a group of low-level players, their very overpowered image would be ruined and no one would dare to join them in the future. It's more chaotic over there. Why don't we charge over there and try? Azure Sword pointed to the right side. If we want to fight, let's fight fiercely. Sword Demon looked to the right. Sure enough, the opponent's formation on the right was very scattered and they couldn't find the direction. Okay. Sword Demon nodded and immediately sent out a message in the channel. Attack the right side. Triangle formation. Han family young master added. Charge. Under Sword Demon's command, the team suddenly changed direction and charged to the right. The players on the right side were arguing because Sword Demon's team didn't advance and instead retreated. Some guilds thought that they should rush to the front and set up a formation to intercept them. Some guilds thought that they should go straight in and cut the opponent's team in half. To begin with, this impromptu encirclement army didn't have a unified commander that everyone could trust. Since the beginning, everyone had agreed to lead their respective guilds to defend a certain location and provide reinforcements to the enemy's escape route. But now, Sword Ghost and the others had changed their tactics a little too much, making it impossible for them to carry out their plan as planned. Everyone clung to their own opinions, and it was only natural that this impromptu team fell into chaos. Sword Demon's team went straight to the right side. The players on the right side screamed, they're coming," as they were killed. Their previous arguments were all useless. What intercepting from the back? What cutting off the opponent? Now the opponent was directly charging towards them. The messy encirclement was immediately broken through. Even Sword Demon, who had always been cautious and respected his opponents, had to admit at this moment that he had overestimated his opponents. Follow the encirclement formation and continue to advance. After discovering that the opponent was very weak, he gave the order to attack without mercy. The situation after that was very similar to Gu Fei's side, except that Gu Fei's team was charging in an anti-clockwise direction, while Sword Demon's team was clockwise. Both sides followed the opponent's encirclement formation and completed a rendezvous. Wherever they went, the players either died or were scattered everywhere. Formation? If spreading out was considered a formation, then they still had one. Water Depth and Tsubasa Sakuratsuka's team also ran in this direction. Most of the players in these two teams were members of Eternal Life in Flowers. There were many lurkers, and Water Depth and Tsubasa Sakuratsuka were both experts in traps. As they ran, they commanded their team members to set up traps. All they heard was the constant cries of the pursuers behind them. Nope to nope. When Water Depth and Sword Demon met up, this was the first thing he said. The difference in the opponent's strength could be seen just from their movement speed. Water Depth and Tsubasa Sakuratsuka ran all the way over, and the pursuers behind them were getting further and further away. Their equipment was poor, their levels were low, and their teamwork was messy. This kind of opponent was nothing. The gathered experts all looked at each other. They all felt that today's battle was a bit unfair. The opponents were too weak. Do we still fight? Gu Fei asked Sword Demon, a bit dispirited. Ever since he teleported into the opponent's formation, he hadn't met a single decent resistance. Everyone ran when they saw him. Some of the slower ones, Gu Fei could actually catch up with them in 2 or 3 steps, but killing them like that was really boring. Moreover, Gu Fei knew that this wasn't a city war. Killing them meant losing a level, so he was a bit soft-hearted. Look at them, Sword Demon said. At this time, they had already easily broken through the encirclement. The cleric team led by Han Family Young Master ensured that the entire team was unharmed. At this time, the very overpowered guilds that wanted to surround them squeezed behind them. They seemed to be hesitating about whether to fight or retreat. These players all had their faces covered and didn't wear guild badges. Just from this alone, one could tell that they were all cowardly third-rate players. They had the numbers advantage over the others, but they were still afraid of revenge in the future, so they didn't even dare to show their true faces. Sword Demon walked out of the team, coughed, and said in a loud voice, "Who can speak?" Sword Demon's eyes were very experienced. He could see that the other side was put together at the last minute and didn't even have a leader. Thus, he didn't ask who was the boss, but who could speak. As expected, as soon as Sword Ghost asked this question, a few masked characters immediately popped out from the enemy's formation. They were all guild leaders, and they all stood up together. After exchanging glances with each other, all of them felt that there was no problem with being the speaker. They all stood up straight. Guys, there's no point in fighting anymore today. Let's just leave it at that. Sword Demon was very direct. He didn't ask boring questions like, "Why are you surrounding us?" The answer to this question was obvious. Moreover, this siege didn't seem like a major conspiracy. It was hard to imagine that a major conspiracy would cause such a chaotic encirclement. The few speakers looked at each other again. Clearly, at this moment, they realized that they could only represent their own guilds. It seemed that they couldn't make decisions for the tens of thousands of people present. They wanted to say some polite words, but they were here to do such a shameful thing. They didn't even know where to start. The other side all had their faces covered. Sword Demon and the others couldn't see the other side's expression. They just carefully observed the other side's formation and found that the other side didn't take advantage of this time to surround them. It seemed that they were subconsciously gathering in this place. It was a very simple habit to stick to where there were more people. Looking back at his own team, although the PK had been suspended, the battle formation was still maintained. Sword Demon was happy about this. He felt that the current group of guild members still had a very promising future. Chapter 781. More than 10,000 players stood in front of Sword Demon and the others. They didn't look like they were here to encircle and annihilate them, but to be lectured. The speakers that Sword Demon was looking for had already stood out more than a dozen, but they were still looking at each other without any ideas. Moreover, more and more people stood out. Sword Demon and the others could see that there might not be a single big guild in this group of people. Perhaps the number of guilds they had could exceed the number of heaven-defying people. It seems that everyone needs some time to make up their minds. Then we'll take our leave first. We'll spar again when we have the chance. Sword Demon saw that the other party didn't respond after a long time and couldn't wait any longer. He led his team and left. Those players were still looking at each other. No one came up with any ideas, and no one took the lead to kill to set an example. They just watched the heaven-defying players swagger away. Haha, awesome, too awesome. The heaven-defying guild channel was filled with cheers at this time. Today's battle was completely daunting but not dangerous. In the beginning, they were still mentally prepared to sacrifice all their members. Who knew that the opponent would be so weak and be defeated so easily? No matter what, the opponent had more than 10,000 people. No matter how weak they were killed by a mere few hundred people. It was really something to be proud of. We're invincible. Roar. There were quite a lot of such voices in the guild channel. Although Sword Demon felt that this invincible was a bit too weak, seeing that everyone was in such high spirits, he didn't pour cold water on them. He let everyone continue to enjoy the joy of the night. This must be a hero who saw that we're heaven-defying and formed a merger, so he specially gave us such a big gift to make us happy, right? Someone joked in the channel, but they didn't know that all the experts had gathered together at this time. The Han family young master was also analyzing the situation on this issue. The other party obviously put it together at the last minute. But this put together is a bit strange. It can't be that so many guilds suddenly came up with the idea of ruining our party, then gathered together and formed an encirclement, right? No matter what, this encirclement and suppression had to have an initiator, and then there should be a process from initiation to organization. In this process, there should be a few core guilds established, right? Naturally, the core guild leader would be the commander with the highest authority. But what about them? Why not? How can there not be any? Han family young master said. Why? Brother, you asked obediently. Those who tried to answer Han family young master's questions would only get despised. Han family young master never asked questions. He always asked questions. Whatever he asked, he would have his own answer. This was instigated and egged on by some people. They are still hiding in the dark. Their real plan hasn't started yet. Han family young master said. Then who could it be? Angshan Xiao? Gu Fei immediately thought of this person, the person who spared no effort to oppose him. It shouldn't be him. Han family young master continued, as I said before, it's a group of people. This instigated so many guilds at once. It can't be done by one person. How many times would he have to visit? So I suspect it's a group. They went around and egged on this group of people to attack us. If it's a group of people, could it be a studio? Gu Fei said as he looked at Water Depth. He originally thought that Water Depth would immediately jump up and talk about how shameless and despicable the studio was, but he didn't expect that Water Depth would calmly say, the studio always puts profit first. But this matter, whether it's the current plan or the follow-up plan, I don't see any economic benefits. By the way, someone seemed to have said that the other party had a real plan. I wonder what a real plan is? When Water Depth said this, he looked at Han family young master with disdain. In this battle, we didn't lose anything. Instead, we gained something. Han family young master said. Gain something? Brother, you muttered. Could it be the current feeling of pride and excitement? Han family young master rolled his eyes at him and looked at Gu Fei. What did you gain? You mean PK points? Gu Fei was very sensitive to this thing. That's right. The Han family's young master nodded. Sending a bunch of random rookies to surround and attack us, what we'll definitely get is PK points. And it's not just a little PK points, but a lot of PK points. Qianli, how much do you have? 78. Gu Fei said. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Yutian Shenming was already looking around nervously. The guards will come to catch you, right? Or will lightning fall from the sky and strike you to death? The guards' pursuit seems to be limited to the main city. Gu Fei said, if it's lightning, I can summon one to strike you to death. Don't mess around. I also have PK points right now. Yutian Shenming hurriedly said. As soon as he said this, everyone fell into silence. The problem of PK points was indeed very serious. With this, dying would mean dropping 2 levels, and this was when the PK points were below 10. When the PK points reached 30, dying would mean dropping 5 levels. As for 78 points, the system didn't explain it all the way, so it was unknown if the PK points above 30 would remain the same. If it wasn't, then 78 PK points, according to the jumping method of 10 PK points per level, would be around 9 levels. 9 levels? Everyone looked at Gu Fei, but on second thought, even if he died once and dropped 9 levels, who would be able to kill him? Not only Gu Fei, but everyone else also began to check their PK points. In this battle, the opponents were weak, so the team killed wherever they went. Everyone was very strong. Apart from the clerics, almost everyone had killed someone. Mages and the others who had map weapons were naturally stronger. Drifting said with a pale face, damn, I have 29 points. It was almost 30. I still haven't adapted to my character from the city war. There was no PK points in the city war, so the players who participated in the city war were a bit extravagant. It hadn't even been a day, and they had encountered PK points again, so they forgot to consider the PK points. Drifting was the player with the highest PK points other than Gu Fei. Everyone else reported their PK points, but most of them were below 10. Those who were above 10 were either mages or strong characters like Sword Demon. After calculating their PK points, everyone realized that they had killed a lot in this battle. It was no wonder that the tens of thousands of players didn't dare to act rashly. Naturally, this PK value also represented how valiant they were in the previous battle. Normal players naturally wouldn't dare to compare themselves to a monster like Gu Fei, but if they were to compete with each other, killing 10 people would definitely be more proud than killing 9 people. For a moment, the guild channel was filled with a competition for PK value. The clerics couldn't get a word in, so they felt especially lonely. Everyone, let's go back and get the quest to clear the PK points. Sword Demon said. I'm afraid it won't be that easy, Han family young master said. Everyone's hearts skipped a beat when they heard this. When young Master Han had analyzed this problem, he had clearly pointed out that the other side had instigated this motley crew to purposely give away PK points. Purposely giving away PK points was, of course, a simple and effective way to hunt down players and obtain equipment. This was something that Wandering Sword's group of 7 knew best. Move quickly. Sword Demon immediately ordered in the guild channel. Where? Everyone asked. We can't just hide in the wilderness forever. I suggest we go to the neighboring main city and clear our PK points before coming back, brother, you suggested. Everyone agreed with this idea and nodded. Thus, the group immediately headed in the direction of the Black Dragon Mountain Range. At this moment, the expression of the young master of the Han clan, who had been observing the surroundings with his binoculars, changed. It might be too late. What? Sword Demon took the telescope from Han family young master's hands and looked around. His expression also changed. Encirclement. Another encirclement. It looked exactly the same as the previous time, but everyone knew that since the previous time was a motley crew that deliberately gave away PK points, this time, it wouldn't be so simple. The other side had a premeditated plan, so they must be very clear about very overpowered strength. Having PK points was one thing, but PK points didn't affect a player's combat strength. Since they dared to encircle them like this, they naturally had the confidence to defeat these experts. There are more people than before, Han family young master concluded after taking a look. Very overpowered's team was silent. However, at this point, they had no other choice. Fight! Before Sword Demon even gave a speech, someone in the guild was already shouting. Yes, fight. At most, I'll drop 2 levels. Damn, you're level 2, I'm going to drop 3. So what if I'm level 3? I'm only level 40. If I drop 2 levels, I'll go straight to level 38. I'll have to start all over again. Damn, you make it sound like I won't drop below level 40 if I'm level 3. In an instant, there was an argument in the channel. Sword Demon sadly discovered that the cohesiveness of the guild wasn't something that could be formed in a day or two. A bonfire party and a PK where they had the upper hand were nothing at all. They might only be able to cultivate a bunch of friends that they could enjoy together, but when it came to sharing weal and woe, some people had already begun to retreat. Everyone, don't argue, Sword Demon yelled loudly. After the guild leader shouted, everyone finally quieted down. At this point, what's the use of saying so much? Again, the other side wants to destroy us, but we can't let them do as they please. Drop levels? Everyone will drop levels. I have 21 PK points now, so I'll drop 4 levels. But it doesn't matter. If we drop levels, we can train again. As long as we don't give up, our levels will eventually come back. Even if today's defeat is already set in stone, everyone must firmly recognize our opponents. Sooner or later, they will be the ones to be defeated, Sword Ghost said. Well said. Brother, you loudly cheered and applauded. This time, however, there was only a sparse response, and when these players saw that there weren't many who responded, they immediately stopped trying to cater to the crowd. Is it really impossible? Sword Demon was sad. Chapter 782. This time, Sword Demon's words didn't boost the morale of the players because everyone knew that they had fallen into the opponent's trap. The motley crew that they had been able to freely attack was actually a sweet poison. At this time, they had all been poisoned by the PK value poison. Every death would result in a severe penalty of dropping at least 2 levels. In such a situation, it was really difficult to keep their spirits up. Sword Demon asked everyone to start assembling the battle team in the channel, but it was as if he hadn't said anything. Everyone's expression was ashen. Some players wanted to follow orders, but they couldn't get the cooperation of other players. In the end, everything seemed to be in vain. Sword Demon looked sadly at his brothers around him. His closest companions in the game also looked helpless. The enemy's encirclement was getting closer and closer. They could already see the enemy's formation. Step by step, they slowly and orderly moved forward. Everyone, be more spirited. Do you all want to sit here and be killed? Before we die, at least let the opponents see how strong we are. Even if we die, we have to drag a few people down with us. Sword Demon was unwilling to give up. Boss Sword Demon? Finally, someone said weakly, I'm also unwilling to give up, but my PK points are exactly 9. Anyway, we will be sacrificed in the end. If I drag another person down with me, my PK points will become 10, and I will drop 1 more level. I don't think we should be too quick at this time. What do you think? Sword Demon was stunned. This player's words made sense. Think about it rationally. At this level of PK points, they were going to die anyway. It was too unscientific to create more PK points for themselves. Seeing that Sword Demon was stunned, many players seemed to have found a reason and shouted, Yes, my PK points are also 9. That's right. My PK points are also 9. Any more and it'll be 10. I'm 8, but I'm a mage. If I'm not careful, I'll exceed it. It's very dangerous. I'm also in danger. The warrior's whirlwind slash can sometimes give more than 1 PK point. Looking at the voices, Sword Demon couldn't tell if they were real or fake. At this time, even Drifting came over and whispered, I'm also at 29. Sword Demon looked back at him and didn't say anything. In his mind, although he wasn't familiar with Drifting, at least they were old acquaintances. At this time, Drifting chose to retreat because of this reason. Sword Demon didn't think there was anything wrong with this. He was just sure that if it were him, no matter if his PK value was 29, 39, or 79, he would never give up because of this. People needed to be rational, but sometimes being too rational would be boring. The sword demon continued to look around. The players were no longer talking, but it was obvious that giving up resistance had become the current theme. Looking around, he saw that some players were even quietly taking off their equipment and putting it in their pockets. Players with PK value had a higher chance of dropping equipment, but if the equipment was in their pockets, the chance of dropping equipment would be greatly reduced. Sigh. Sword Ghost sighed deeply. He finally felt that he had nothing to say. Everyone might be able to protect some immediate benefits, but as a guild, Sword Demon felt that this guild had no soul at all. The encirclement was closing in, so close that it was completely within the attack range. Because everyone had lost their fighting spirit, Sword Demon couldn't organize any attacks and could only let them do what they wanted. The opponents surrounding them weren't in a hurry to attack. Like the previous motley crew, they were masked and didn't wear badges. Obviously, they were afraid of being seen through. This was Sword Demon's only comfort. At least the other side was still a little afraid. Although this fear might only be for one person, Sword Demon looked at Gu Fei. Gu Fei had the most PK value. He didn't say anything in the dispute just now, but Sword Demon was sure that he wouldn't back down. He didn't know whether it was PK 78 or 178. However, with 1,000 miles drunk strength, he would definitely be able to kill a few dozen more people. That way, by the time he died, he might even fall below level 30. All of his equipment might also drop. If he had to pay such a big price, was it really worth it to not give up on what he pursued? Sword Demon was suddenly at a loss. He realized that this problem couldn't be generalized. Perhaps at this time, he should activate the teleportation scroll and send away some people with high PK value. Right? Teleportation scroll, why didn't he think of it at the beginning? The sword ghost was overjoyed, but just as he was about to tell Gu Fei about it, he suddenly stopped. The scroll definitely couldn't send everyone away, so who should be sent away? What would the people who weren't sent away think? He kept saying that he wanted to fight with everyone, but suddenly he wanted to use the scroll to send away the people who had lost a lot. Wasn't this behavior inconsistent? Sword Demon was at a loss. At the same time, he wondered why the other side hadn't made a move yet. The other side finally spoke. Everyone, it's been hard on you. It's not easy to carry so many PK value, right? Now, I'll give you a chance. As long as you quit against the heavens, you can leave immediately. You can wash your PK value or do whatever you want. It has nothing to do with us. Do you understand? Our target is the extremely heaven-defying guild, not everyone here. As soon as he said this, everyone was in an uproar. Vicious, so vicious. So the other side wants to force our guild to disband. If so, I'm sure there will be an ambush at the resurrection point. Our people will be killed until they have no choice but to quit the guild. When there are less than 20 people, the guild will disband, Han family young master said. Disband the guild? That's right. After the guild disbands, what will happen to the 6 districts that have been awarded to the players? Han family young master said. Everyone was in a daze when Drifting walked over. I'm sorry, everyone, Sword Demon looked at Drifting. He already knew what he was going to say. I'll quit first. After I get away, I'll add them back later, Drifting said. The loss of 4 levels can be avoided, but I think it's better to avoid it. You bastard, you really have no sense of loyalty. If everyone quit like you, would there still be a damn guild for you to add? If there are less than 20 people in the guild, it will automatically disband. Don't you know this rule? Yutian Shenming didn't like Drifting. When he saw that this guy had this idea, he immediately cursed. Drifting didn't say anything. He just looked at Sword Demon. Sword Demon actually smiled and said to him, "Then hurry up and leave." We can't let him leave. Brother Yu was also anxious. He's a famous master. If he leaves, I don't know how many people will be affected. As soon as Brother Yu finished speaking, the system jingled in the guild channel. Some people had already left, leaving only a few words like, "I'm sorry," and "I'm sorry." Yutian Shenming cursed. Brother Yu's prophecy had become reality. These people were just small characters. Once they left, it was like turning on a tap. System messages about leaving the guild kept flashing. The players who left the team quietly left and walked toward the encirclement. After all, not all the guild members were like this. Some players who didn't leave couldn't help but curse at these guys. Some were even ready to pounce on them. However, Sword Ghost spoke up in time and stopped these players from leaving, allowing them to leave. The encirclement kept its promise. Those who left came to them and were asked a few questions. Then they really let them leave. This retreat was like a wave that swept across the whole guild. The original 134 players were very powerful, but in the blink of an eye, there were only 52 people left. More than half of them had left. Drifting in this wave, he had already left without making a sound. The other party seemed to be satisfied with this result and continued to shout, "We know that there are friends from Amethyst Reborn and Immortal among flowers here who are unrelated to us. Friends from these two guilds, please leave." Amethyst Rebirth and Eternal Life in a cluster of flowers were both anomalies in the guild. But don't be fooled by the fact that one was a girl and the other was a perverted man. In terms of loyalty, they were much stronger than most people. Who would have thought that with just a single sentence from the other party, the two guilds would actually stand up and walk away? Fuck you. Yutian Shenming didn't expect these two guilds to leave without a word. Although he felt that it was for the best that they left, their attitude made Yutian Shenming very unhappy. He finally exploded. Since he was going to die either way, instead of watching the other party act leisurely, he might as well make the first move. Even if he died, he would drag one of them down with him. Yutian Shenming agreed with this argument. At this moment, he drew his bow and prepared to shoot at the guy who shouted. Unexpectedly, before the arrow was released, a figure suddenly flashed in front of him. The only person who could do this in the game was Gu Fei, who could teleport. Before Yutian Shenming could react, the fire that he had seen countless times rose. But this time, the target of the fire was him. Instant kill. Yutian Shenming was just an archer with low HP. He couldn't block Gu Fei's sword. A white light appeared on the spot, and he disappeared before he could even say a word. Qianli. Sword Demon and the others were stunned and looked at Gu Fei in disbelief. Gu Fei didn't say anything. He turned around and cast another area of effect spell, which was directly thrown into the formation of very powerful players. The players screamed and scattered in all directions. Gu Fei's attacks were extremely ruthless. He chased after them all the way, killing one with each slash. Qianli, are you crazy? Unscathed in battle rushed forward. Gu Fei turned around and slapped Unscathed in battle's head with a thunder palm. However, the warrior was full of HP and this palm wasn't enough. Gu Fei followed up with a dual flame flash, finishing off Unscathed in battle as he cursed, "Fuck you." This sudden turn of events shocked both the players surrounding and the players surrounded. Seeing Gu Fei slaughtering his own people like a madman, everyone wore expressions of bewilderment. There were only 52 people left, and in the blink of an eye, more than half of them were killed by Gu Fei. Sword Demon and the others were completely stunned. They didn't know whether to stop him or not, so they could only stand there dumbly. What is he doing? The surrounding players saw this scene, but they were still in the mood to discuss. Rather than letting them die in our hands, why not just send them off himself? Someone analyzed. Then how many PK points will he accumulate this way? Damn it, can Qianli still break out of our encirclement when he's drunk? I think he saw through our plan, so he might as well kill his own people before threatening us, someone said. Then didn't he think that we would ambush him at the revival point? Inform the other side to identify the targets. Extremely overpowered members, including Yutian Shenming, Unscathed in battle, Yun Xiang, Fireball, Brother Yu, Kennen Yu, Glue, Fire Blazing Clothes. Even Deepwater, Lu Ku, and 100 Generation Strategist were all killed by Gu Fei. Only then did 100 Generation Strategist realize how terrifying Gu Fei's skills were. He wanted to resist, but the ever-changing swordplay had already slashed his neck in an instant, killing him. The scene was cleared, leaving only Sword Demon and Han family young master. Sword Demon, who was confused before, now revealed an expression of relief. He watched as Gu Fei rushed towards him, but he didn't resist at all. A sword flew out and killed Han family young master first, then swept up Sword Demon, and a thunder palm pushed out, killing Sword Demon. The surrounding players had already received the news at this time. The players at the 7 revival points all claimed that they didn't see any overpowered players. How is that possible? Didn't I tell you to memorize their guild badges? Look more carefully. No, really, there are no overpowered players. We know some of them, and we don't even need to recognize their badges, but no one is coming. They were killed, but they didn't revive at the revival point. What was going on? Could it be that the extremely heaven-defying people weren't in Cloud City? Or that the extremely heaven-defying people had their own resurrection points in their city? Impossible, they didn't hear of such content in the reward. Everyone looked at Gu Fei blankly, but Gu Fei was also looking at them coldly. He pointed at the one who was always shouting, "I will come back to you. Kill him." The surrounding players came to their senses. At this time, Qianli was drunk, and he should have more than 100 PK points, right? Wouldn't he drop to level 20, and even his underwear would be destroyed? The mages started to cast their spells. In the narrow encirclement, there was no chance to dodge. Unexpectedly, at this time, Gu Fei suddenly flashed and quickly disappeared. What's going on? Everyone was confused again. Teleportation scroll? Impossible, teleportation scrolls can't be that fast. We've been guarding against teleportation scrolls for a long time. Then it can't be suicide, right? It doesn't seem like it. Damn, what's going on? Where are they? Where did they all go? The surrounding players were all going crazy. The players in the field clearly disappeared in the white light, but they couldn't find a single one. Damn, where's the insider? Where's the insider? Someone suddenly thought of something. I sent a message, but I couldn't send it. He was clearly online, but there was no notification saying that he turned off his messages. Someone said, "You idiot, why didn't you say so earlier? He's in prison." Chapter 783. The surrounding players didn't expect such a thing to happen. It looked like he was killed, but instead of going to the resurrection point, he went to the prison. If that was the case, then Thousand Miles Drunk, who had been killing people like he was chopping vegetables, was actually doing a bounty quest. If they had known, they wouldn't have been so calm. Frankly speaking, although the surrounding players had the advantage in numbers, they were still afraid because they knew what kind of experts were present. Being forced to this point, they would naturally give it their all. This wasn't a city war, where dying meant losing levels. Facing such experts, no matter how many people there were, they couldn't guarantee that there wouldn't be casualties, especially when Qianli was drunk. Who knew how many sacrifices it would take to kill him? Losing levels wasn't just something that overpowered players were afraid of. Who in this game wouldn't be afraid of losing levels? Therefore, they were very happy to be able to attack their opponents without suffering any damage. Although they still had to continue to chase and threaten the resurrection point, the ones in charge were other players. Regardless of success or failure, the danger of losing levels wouldn't be their turn. This was a bit like kicking a ball, except that it was Qianli who did it. Therefore, these people accepted it happily until now, when they realized that the situation wasn't right, but it was too late for regrets. Just as they were gritting their teeth, a new message suddenly came: "There's a very overpowered person in the Priest Academy." Really? Kill him 180 times? The encirclement of players had made a huge mistake, and now it was too late for regrets. Suddenly realizing that there was still a target to chase and kill, it was as if they had found a life-saving straw. They didn't even think about how just chasing and killing one person was a threat. Their plan to force the overpowered players to leave the guild and disband by threatening to kill and lose levels had actually gone awry. The players in charge of the resurrection point had yet to grasp the whole situation, but they continued to carry out their mission seriously. On the Priest Academy's side, the targets were all priests. The work was easy and risk-free, so there weren't many people here, and there weren't many fierce masters. At this time, seeing that the priest appeared at the resurrection point, they were already prepared to intercept and kill. Like the encirclement of players, they were also masked and didn't wear their guild badges. When it came to this kind of ambush, thieves naturally became the main characters. At this time, there were ambushes both inside and outside the priest academy. They were just waiting for the priest to step out of the academy's entrance before swarming in and killing them. However, the Han family young master was not in a hurry. He slipped out of the priest academy as if he was enjoying the scenery. The hands of the bandits were sweating. Just as this person was about to leave the resurrection point, he suddenly stopped. Pang! Many players who were passing by the priest academy and setting up stalls turned to look in their direction. In the end, they saw a few assassin players at the foot of the wall to the left of the academy's entrance, their bodies flashing with light. It was glass shards that splashed on them. I'm sorry. The Han family young master waved his hands to apologize to the assassins. Seeing that the Han family young master was talking to them, the assassins quickly pretended that nothing had happened. They patted their bodies and said, it's fine. We're in stealth mode so we can't see it. Where are the ambushers? It must have been tough, right? The Han family young master said. The assassins snickered, thinking that once you take the next step, we'll immediately give you a surprise. In the end, they heard the Han family young master say, but I won't take this step. Are you in a hurry? The assassins were startled, but the masks they wore helped them hide their expressions. Then one of them said, what did you say? We don't understand. Which guild are you guys from? The Han family young master asked. We are. One of them had just said these 3 words when he was immediately kicked by the person beside him. He came to his senses and said, we don't have a guild. Your acting skills are too bad. The Han family young master shook his head. He took out his hand from his pocket and suddenly swung it to the right of the door. There's one here too, right? Pang! The bottle shattered again, but this time, no one came out. It moved? The Han family young master mumbled. He suddenly took out a small cloth bag from his pocket and shook it in front of him as if he was performing a magic trick. The small cloth bag was opened, and inside it was white lime originating from White Stone City. As soon as it was opened, it immediately rushed towards the young master of the Han family. One of the thieves was drenched on the spot, and he looked like a face man from head to toe. His brothers on his left and right weren't spared either, and all of them were exposed. I'm so sorry. I didn't know you were so close to me. The Han family young master casually threw the cloth bag away. The bandits in front of him were less than 3 steps away from him. If the Han family young master stepped out of the resurrection point, they would be able to stab him with one hand. The bandits in front of him were the most pounced on. He spread his hands and looked down at his white face, not knowing what to do. The other guys also looked at each other, not knowing how to continue. In the end, they saw young Master Han reach into his pocket again. When his hand came out, it was another wine bottle. The 2 groups of bandits were startled. This fellow was going to throw things around again in the future, so they hurriedly prepared to dodge. However, this time, young Master Han just bit the bottle cap open and started drinking. He would never waste a bottle filled with wine. Just the few of you? Is there anyone else? The Han family young master asked. There were 2 groups of bandits. There were a total of 10 people. 5 of them were smashed by the broken bottles, while the other 5 were pounced on by the white lime. Even the mask couldn't hide their awkward expressions. Seeing the arrogant look of the Han family young master, they were a little indignant. Since their goal had been exposed, one of them couldn't help but say, "Come out if you have the guts." The Han family young master drank a mouthful of wine and ignored them. "We are targeting very overpowered. As long as you back out of very overpowered, we won't make things difficult for you." One of the brothers finally remembered their real purpose. They should have told them this line first. If the other party was willing to back out of very overpowered, then it would be better than killing them 10 times over. "Oh, can I join your guild if I back out?" The Han family young master asked. "This can be discussed. You back out first." One of them said. "Oh, what guild are you?" Fuck idiot. Shut up. Can't you see that this guy is just playing with you? Another person kicked the stupid thief and then turned around to face the Han family young master. He showed a cold expression. If you have the guts, then don't ever come out. If you have the guts, then don't ever leave. The Han family young master drank a mouthful of wine. Ha, you want to waste time with us? Even if we take turns, we will be able to guard you. This person said. Then what time does your shift end? The Han family young master suddenly asked. None of your business. I advise you to leave now or else it will be too late. The Han family young master said. Who are you trying to scare? Look over there. The Han family young master pointed. What a childish trick. The person laughed coldly, but there were still people among the 10 thieves who couldn't help but look in the direction that the Han family young master pointed. A black figure came into view. Black clothes, purple sword. Just this appearance alone made many people feel like they were going to drop a level. Qianli is drunk. Finally, someone shouted. Gu Fei was already in front of them. He expressionlessly glanced at the Han family young master, then pointed at the 10 thieves in front of him to ask. The Han family young master nodded. Thus, Gu Fei's figure flashed in front of the 10 thieves, and his sword mercilessly swept away 5 of them. These assassins were enough to bully a priest, but if they wanted to deal with Gu Fei, they were still far from it. The very overpowered players obviously knew how hard it was to deal with Qianli, so they had stationed their strongest forces at the Mage Academy. Who would have thought that Qianli wouldn't even appear there? Gu Fei, who had completed a large number of bounty quests, activated his Windchaser emblem, and directly flew back to the bounty office. After handing in the quests, he quickly cleaned up his PvP points, and then came to pick up the Han family young master. The Han family young master was a priest, so he didn't have any PvP points. He couldn't use the bounty quest to send him to jail, so he was surrounded so tightly that he didn't have the time to do anything else. Gu Fei might as well just kill him back, since he was going to drop a level anyway. They were already in dire need of priests. During the city war, they had to rely on hired people to complete the battle. Just now, more than half of their people had retreated, including the few foreign priests. After killing those 5, Gu Fei moved on to the other 5. The 5 of them didn't have any intention of fighting him, so they turned around and ran. Gu Fei killed one with a lightning spell, and the others were too lazy to chase after him. He turned around and looked at the Han family young master. Are there any more? There should be. The Han family young master looked around, including the priest academy. Where's Einaroma Mu and Lin Lin Sinsen? Gu Fei asked. These 2, along with the Han family young master, were the last 3 remaining priests. I don't see them. If they're not offline, then they've already snuck out. Don't worry about them. Aren't they experienced? They were born to ambush others, so how could they be ambushed by others? If it wasn't for the fact that I was too talented and couldn't disguise myself, then I would have snuck out a long time ago. The Han family young master said. Gu Fei resisted the urge to vomit. He looked around, but he couldn't determine who the assassins were. The young master of the Han family was smashing wine bottles and scattering white ash. Gu Fei had killed 6 people the moment he arrived. The entire street's attention was attracted. Apart from the 3 of you and me, the others are all in jail. Gu Fei said. How did you do it? The Han family young master asked. With my bounty license, as long as I have PK points, I'll automatically receive the mission. I just followed the guild list and received the mission. Gu Fei said. Oh, that's convenient. The Han family young master nodded his head. Who are they? Gu Fei asked. I don't know, but it's not hard to find. The Han family young master said. Why? With so many people participating, how could there not be any news? Did they think that no one would know just because they covered their faces and took off their guild badge? What a joke. When did a secret mission involve tens of thousands of people? The Han family young master said. That makes sense. Gu Fei nodded his head, but there are people in our guild. You saw through it? It's too obvious. If they leave the guild, then they can leave. But how can they confirm whether or not they really left? Guild badge? What if I took it myself? So, It's clear that they have someone in our guild. This person is looking at our guild list, so they can naturally confirm whether or not the players that left are real or fake. Gu Fei said. So you didn't say anything and started killing. You were afraid that if you said anything, that guy would send the news out. The Han family young master said. Gu Fei nodded his head. After that, he directly went to jail. Even if he wanted to say it, he wouldn't be able to send the news. Then you were the one who let Amethyst Rebirth and Eternal Life leave, right? The Han family young master asked. Not bad. The Han family young master nodded his head. But there was a small mistake. Gu Fei scratched his head. Deepwater, Lu Ku, encyclopedic strategist, these people didn't need to be killed. They weren't from our guild to begin with. If they wanted to leave, they wouldn't have a hard time. I was too busy killing them and forgot. Gu Fei said. In the underground prison of Cloud City, many overpowered players gathered together. After the bonfire party, the entire guild came to the prison. This event was quite unique. When they were first attacked by Gu Fei, everyone was confused. After reviving in the prison, they all understood what was going on. Most of them were happy. Some of them didn't have high PK points and would be able to get through it after a few hours. If they were killed, they would drop 2 levels. It was obvious who was better. Fuck, so that was Qianli's intention. He didn't even say anything. Yutian Shenming smiled. Compared to the fact that he avoided dropping levels in prison, he realized that Gu Fei killed them out of good intentions. This made him feel even happier. When Gu Fei suddenly attacked him and instantly killed him, he was infuriated. Sword Demon, are you there? Yutian Shenming shouted. Although the prison of Cloud City was large, the upper limit was 25 people. There were a total of 51 people who were sent to prison, and they needed 2 rooms. There was one more person. Yutian Shenming was the first to be killed, and Sword Demon was the last. Of course, the 2 of them weren't in the same cell. Yutian Shenming looked around the room and didn't see Sword Demon. He immediately shouted. Stop shouting. He's in front of you. Sword Demon responded. How are you? Yutian Shenming continued to shout. Same as you. Sword Demon said. How is it the same? Your PK points are over 20. Even if you're wanted, you'll drop 2 levels. Yutian Shenming shouted. It's nothing. It's good that everyone is fine. Sword Demon said calmly. His tone was actually gratified. The 2 cells were originally celebrating their escape from death. After hearing this shout, they suddenly quieted down. They had actually forgotten this PK rule. At the same time, everyone discovered a problem. Sword Demon wasn't by their side. Boss Sword Demon, where are you? The voice came from the 2 cells at the same time. Right next to you. Sword Demon replied. Brother, you counted and then slapped his head. There are 25 people in each cell. We should have 51 people. Then there's one more. Sword Demon, you can't be that person, right? Hee, I was the last to come in. Sword Demon laughed. Boss Sword Demon. Those who had just joined the guild didn't quit at that moment. Or rather, those who wanted to quit but didn't have the time to quit were all moved. Sword Demon's punishment was much heavier than any of them. Most of their PK points were in the single digits. Even if they were killed outside, they would only lose 2 levels. But now, not only did Sword Demon have to accept imprisonment, but he also had to suffer a penalty of 2 levels. In addition, there was a very important problem. Boss Sword Ghoul, don't tell me you booked a room by yourself? Sword Demon said. Everyone was silent again. Sword Demon's PK points were 21. This was what he had said before. He would be in prison for 42 hours alone. What about them? There were 25 people in each cell. Some people had already taken out their poker cards. If they hadn't heard the news from Boss Sword Demon, they would have already started. Everyone was silent. Finally, someone suddenly shouted with righteous indignation, when we get out, we must avenge Boss Sword Demon. Yes, avenge, avenge. There were many responses. Although Sword Demon was sent to prison by Gu Fei and lost a level, this revenge was still on those guys who encircled him. Thank you, everyone. Sword Demon smiled. Sword Demon, who do you think those guys are? Not being in the same cell didn't stop Brother Yu's gossipy heart. At this time, he wanted to discuss with Sword Demon. Wait until we get out. Sword Demon answered him. How long have we waited for you to get out? Brother Yu shouted as well. After he shouted, he realized that many people were glaring at him. These people clearly thought that Brother Yu was rubbing salt into the Sword Specter's wound. Brother Yu was startled, but he suddenly felt gratified for Sword Demon. Although Sword Demon had suffered heavy losses this time, he had thoroughly impressed these newcomers. Although there weren't many people, their cohesiveness always spread from small to large. Sword Demon's deeds this time would definitely be talked about by people in there against the Heavens Guild, letting everyone understand what kind of person their guild leader was. Lu Ku came to Brother Yu's side and pulled him. Stop shouting. Brother Yu saw that Lu Ku seemed to have something to say, and Water Depth also walked over with a solemn expression. There's a problem, haven't you noticed? What? There's a traitor in your guild. Water Depth gritted his teeth. Traitor? Brother Yu was startled. Think about it. They said that if you quit the guild, you'll be allowed to leave. But how do they know if you really quit or not? Lu Ku said. Badge. Brother Yu pointed to his chest. After I quit the guild, the badge will disappear. Well, what if I take it off myself? Lu Ku said. Keep a close eye on it. Brother Yu said. Lu Ku looked at him and didn't explain. Okay, there's probably a traitor. Brother Yu nodded. Sword Demon should have noticed it too. Lu Ku said. Even if he didn't notice, someone will know and will definitely tell him. Water Depth said. Brother Yu knew who he was talking about, so he didn't ask. Then he suddenly thought, Chinli also knows, so he killed without saying anything. He's afraid that if he says it in the guild channel, it will be spread out. That's right. Lu Ku nodded. Who is this traitor? Brother Yu sucked in a breath of cold air and looked at the players in their cell. What about that Ling Gufeng? The guy from the studio. After the fight, where has he been? Water Depth suddenly asked. Chapter 784. Shui Shen's question made Brother Yu pause. He didn't pay much attention to the people in the studio, or rather, he didn't pay much attention to anyone in the guild. The majority of the players in the studio didn't have a good impression of them. I didn't notice him. Brother Yu furrowed his eyebrows and thought for a long time. When we started to deal with the motley crew, he definitely wasn't in your 3-speed teams, so he was probably with us. After that, we were surrounded. At that time, everyone was panicking and I completely forgot that there was such a person. I forgot too, damn it. Shui Shen was depressed. He felt that this matter shouldn't have happened to him. He had always hated the people in the studio. How could he forget to pay attention to that person's existence? This time it shouldn't have anything to do with him, right? If it was him, he wouldn't have come here at all. This would make people suspicious. Lu Ku said. Maybe he thought of this and purposely came to clear his name? Shui Shen said. You're wasting your time. Lu Ku said. Don't argue, don't argue. Right now, the best thing to do is to dig out that person in the guild. Brother Yu said. What do you have in mind? Shui Shen asked. I don't know, think about it. Brother Yu said. Think about it, think about it. There's plenty of time. Shui Shen sighed and shrank into a corner. Brother Yu looked at the group of people in front of him and felt very distressed. He wasn't good at finding these kinds of things. Moreover, there were only half of the people here. Maybe the traitor was in another cell? Would there be people on the other side who would notice this? Brother Yu looked at the players in his cell and had a rough idea of who was there. South Sword, there was someone with a brain there. If it was him, he should be able to notice a lot of things, right? As Brother Yu was thinking, he suddenly heard a commotion in the cell. It was clear that they were using the limited items in their hands to pass the time. Brother Yu was speechless. At this moment, Sword Demon's voice suddenly came from the other side. Brother Yu, are you there? Brother Yu quickly answered. Let's calculate everyone's jail time. I don't think the opponent will let us go so easily. Let's choose a time to leave the prison together. It'll probably be better. Sword Demon said. Oh, I understand. Brother Yu replied. Then, he turned to the other side and shouted, Danan, did you hear that? Count up everyone's time in that room. Got it. Jian Nan's voice could be heard. Brother Yu immediately took out a pen and paper and went to work. Outside Cloud City, the news of the Priest Academy being killed instead of intercepting had come. The guild leaders who participated in this operation were a little uneasy at this time. The strongest, most terrifying, and most incisive opponent had actually completely escaped. Moreover, this person had even left behind words before leaving, making it clear that he was going to take revenge. This was too terrifying. Don't worry, he doesn't know who we are. Someone comforted the guild leaders in the channel. You idiot, with so many of us moving, it's too easy for information to leak out. It's not difficult to find out. One of them cursed. Fuck, then why did we cover our faces and hide our badges? Another person said. Fuck, if we can do it, then we'll do it first. Originally, we thought that this guy would definitely be taken care of by us. At that time, the insider gave us information that this guy's PK value was 78 points. Think about it, with this PK value, if he was killed, he would directly drop 9 levels. Maybe he would kill a few more people, and after 80 points, he would be level 10. No matter what, he would have some equipment on him. Do we still need to be afraid of him? But now the situation is different. This guy actually escaped unscathed. Fuck, how did he do it? What are you thinking about now? Hurry up and think of a way to take care of him. That's right, we have no way out. This time, if he doesn't die, then we're finished. Apart from the Mage Academy, the people at the other revival points can't be used for now. Everyone gather in the direction of the Priest Academy. We must keep track of Qianli Drunk's tracks. We also need to hurry back. Right now, there are still people at the Priest Academy, right? There are. Where did Qianli Drunk go? He didn't go anywhere. He's at the revival point chatting with the priest Han family young master. Chatting? Everyone fell silent. A strong aura of disregard deeply hurt everyone's self-esteem. This Qianli Drunk clearly knew that they would definitely gather people to surround him, but he still stood there chatting as if there was no one else around. Right? Get a wanted quest. Suddenly, someone reacted. He just killed a few more people, right? It's rare for him to have such a high PK value. If he wants to get a quest, let's get the highest one. That way, we won't have to worry about him running away. Running? Why the fuck would he run? Didn't you hear him chatting over there? Someone snapped. He's in the safe zone now. I think when our people surround him, he'll still have to leave. Things like teleportation scrolls are very convenient. So are we going to surround him or not? Of course we are. But he left. Where did he go? Who knows? Anyway, the revival point appeared. Keep an eye on him, keep an eye on him. I know. Gu Fei and the Han family young master planned for a while before exiting the revival point together. Then, they walked towards the row of players outside the Priest Academy. When they arrived in front of a certain fellow, the two of them stopped. The Han family young master shook his head. His acting skills are too bad. It would be too strange for a street vendor to wear a mask. Therefore, this guy was not wearing any makeup. When he was noticed by Gu Fei and the Han family young master, his face turned ashen. He didn't know how he exposed himself, so he could only pretend to be calm. What would you like to order? You're still pretending. Gu Fei pulled out his sword and stabbed it into the ground. The players from both sides were startled and hid far away to watch. Big brother, there are so many people here, but you're the only one who keeps looking at us. Give me a good reason, said the Han family young master. This person was speechless. He felt that he had been peeking at them. It was very covert, and he only glanced at them once. How did he get noticed? Which guild are you from? Gu Fei touched his sword and asked. That person didn't answer. Have you identified your class? Gu Fei asked the Han family young master. Warrior. Give me the teleportation scroll to the warrior camp. Gu Fei extended his hand towards the Han family young master. Thus, the Han family young master handed over a scroll. If you don't tell me, I'm going to start. Gu Fei pulled out his sword from the ground. This person had an intense mental struggle. Should he betray the guild or give up on this level? After a moment of struggle, he finally made up his mind. He quickly sent a message to the guild. I've been discovered by Qianli. He's going to kill me. I'll sacrifice myself to lure him to the warrior camp. Get ready. At the same time, he raised his head and looked at Gu Fei. Will you let me go if I tell you? I can think about it. Gu Fei nodded. Just think about it? By the way, I suggest that you leave the guild after you tell me because your guild will go bankrupt. Gu Fei said. Let me think about it. The person said. He's stalling for time. Gu Fei said to the Han family young master. It's obvious. The Han family young master nodded and lectured him. Everything you do is too obvious. We can see that you're stalling for time. How can we fall for any traps you set up? For example, setting up an ambush in the warrior camp. Tell them to stop. The person was speechless. Tell your guild leader to hide well. That includes his people and his guild. After Gu Fei finished speaking, he slashed down with a spell. The person didn't even think about resisting and let Gu Fei kill him. I can't scare him. After killing the person, Gu Fei shook his head and sighed. This guy is level 41, right? Maybe he'll be better at level 40. No matter what, it's just a level drop. It's not scary enough. The Han family young master also sighed. We still have to find out. Gu Fei said. Then hurry up. Wait, I'll buy a ring. How much is it? At the entrance of the priest academy, there was a lot of priest equipment. While Gu Fei was killing people, the Han family young master found a ring from a stall and traded it. Gu Fei was helpless. He sent a message to July and Tsubasa Sakuratsuka. Are you guys okay? We're fine. The two replied. That's good. How are you guys? What's your plan? July and Tsubasa Sakuratsuka were people from two different worlds, but they had the same problem. Because at that time, both of them had received the same message from Gu Fei. Take the guild's people away. We have another way to escape. July and Sakurazuka Tsukasa were people who could see the big picture during crucial moments. They didn't act blindly. When they received Gu Fei's message, they were just in time to see the other side shouting the same thing. Thus, they led the two guilds away. I sent them to prison with a wanted quest. Right now, I'm the only one outside. There are still priests who haven't PK. Gu Fei told the two. Then what do you plan on doing next? The two asked the same question. Of course I can't let those guys go. Of course, they probably won't dare to let their guard down against me. It's just that I don't know who my opponent is. I mean, help me ask around. Gu Fei said. That shouldn't be hard. With so many people moving, there should be quite a bit of news in the city. July nodded and immediately asked the girls to ask around. The girls naturally didn't refuse. Only Slender Waist Dance rubbed her fists, wanting to find Gu Fei to kill people together. No need. Wait until they find out who the target is, then you can just kill them. Gu Fei made up his mind this time. I'm going to spend money to buy information right now. Slender Waist Dance was furious. On the other side of Immortal Amidst the Flowers, Vast Mang, who had a lot of experience in fighting, gave Gu Fei a plan. The second encirclement is obviously different from the first. There's a scale and a plan. Plus, there are people stationed at the revival points. It's a well-planned operation. This definitely isn't something that can be organized in a short amount of time. Even if the plan was implemented immediately after the city war ended, I don't think there's enough time. I think that this group was most likely formed during the city war. Besides, to be able to organize such a large scale, there must be a leader who can convince the masses. With Cloud City's situation, only the 5 major guilds have this kind of cohesiveness. Maybe it's 1, maybe it's 2. Makes sense. Gu Fei agreed and told Vast Mang's analysis to Han Family Young Master. Han Family Young Master shook his head. I don't think this is an operation that can be organized by guilds alone. But Gu Fei asked. I've analyzed it before. The other party's goal is to disband our guild. It's possible that they're aiming for the 6 city rewards that our guild currently has. However, there are only 6 city districts. No matter how the system redistributes these 6 districts after we perish, there will at most be 6 guilds assigned to each district. The first wave of people that attacked us might have been deceived cannon fodder. Let's not talk about that for now. The second wave, including the ambushes at the revival points, I estimate that there are no less than 20,000 people. How many guilds would that be? Even if they were all level 6 guilds, there would be at least 20. However, there are only 6 city districts right now. How do you expect these busy guilds to distribute the rewards? Han family young master said. Then according to what you've said, wouldn't it be impossible to form such a large-scale team? Gu Fei was confused. A studio. Only a studio can do it. Moreover, even if we perish, will the rewards for our city districts be redistributed? The system hasn't announced the relevant rules yet. However, there are definitely rules. It's just that it hasn't been announced yet. However, the studio might have already gotten hold of this insider information through their channels. That's why they couldn't wait to make a move on us, a guild with a lot of weak districts. Han family young master said. Wait, the target is our reward city district. This has always been your deduction, right? Gu Fei said. Or maybe the other party just wants to attack us and take revenge for our victory in the city war. Han family young master nodded his head. I can only think of 3 reasons to attack us. First, it's for the reward of the city district. Second, it's like you said. They're dissatisfied, so they gathered together to vent their anger on us. As for the third, they saw our guild's potential, so they wanted to take our lives while we were still weak. First, it's for benefits. Third, it's because of the competition in the game. As for the second, it's because they're idiots. Only idiots can think of this. I think dying once and dropping a level isn't enough, right? Gu Fei's face darkened. I'll make it clearer. The first reason is for benefits. The third reason is for power. As for the second reason, it's for a moment of pleasure. Don't tell me that you firmly believe that such an organized and planned attack is just a matter of pride, and that you only want to feel good about it. There shouldn't be that many childish people, right? There shouldn't be that many childish guild leaders. Sword without oath, against the current, Unchung Mutsu, Black Index Finger, Gu Shaoshang. Out of the 5 leaders of the 5 level 6 guilds in Cloud City, which one of them do you think would be so impulsive? Han family young master said. Gu Shaoshang. Gu Fei answered. The young master of the Han family was speechless for a moment, but then he said, she might, but if it was her, she would have led her men and charged straight at us. She wouldn't have hidden herself. And that's true. So you see, the second proposition doesn't hold water. Because the 5 guilds in Cloud City wouldn't do something so impulsive. Without them, we wouldn't be able to gather such a large team. Han family young master said. But you said before that the studio also has this ability. So we're back to the first proposition. Or are you saying that you think the studio would do something so impulsive? Han family young master continued to talk to Gu Fei with a disdainful attitude. Okay, the second proposition doesn't hold water. But first and third don't need to be considered separately. Maybe they each have their own plans and came together to get what they need. Gu Fei said. That's right, this is the most likely possibility. If the studio wants to do something, they would need to borrow the strength of the 5 guilds, unless one of the 5 guilds is directly controlled by them. Then why aren't you asking around? What are you talking about? We're being followed, we might be surrounded at any time. Let me tell you. Gu Fei said. Kill him. Han family young master was just standing there and talking. Archers tens of meters away, how can I chase them? Gu Fei said. How did you find out? That messy killing intent of yours doesn't seem to be more than 10 meters away. Do you think I'm blind? I can only rely on that feeling. I have eyes too. Haven't you heard of the phrase, seeing 6 directions with your eyes? Gu Fei said. In the end, Han family young master didn't pay attention to him. He suddenly waved his hand and called out, Hello, Guild Leader Gu. Gu Shaoshang was standing at the end of the street. When he heard the call, he turned around and saw the two of them. He smiled and greeted them. "What are you looking for me for?" "It looks like guild leader Gu doesn't know what happened to us tonight," Han family young master said. "What happened?" Gu Xiaoshang looked like he really didn't know. "We were ambushed. The enemy was very sinister. They first sent a bunch of noobs to surround us. After we retreated, we gained a large amount of PK points. Then, their main force appeared and threatened to disband our guild. Including the motley crew at the beginning, there were around 30 to 40,000 people that participated in this ambush," Han family young master said. "Is that so? I didn't hear anything about it. It looks like you two are fine now? This is a long story, let's talk about it later. I'm looking for you because the people who attacked us were all masked and didn't wear any badges. We still don't know where they came from," Han family young master said. "About that? It was an event with tens of thousands of people, so there should be a lot of people that noticed it, right? I'll go ask for you guys right now," Gu Xiaoshang said. "Thank you," Han family young master said. "Alright, keep in touch. Actually, we don't have to meet for this," Gu Xiaoshang said. "Then keep in touch." Han family young master waved his hand to send Gu Xiaoshang off. "That's it?" Gu Fei's face was expressionless. "Use all the resources we can," Han family young master said. "Then why don't we meet the other four as well?" Gu Fei said. "That's what I was thinking." Han family young master nodded. "Who are you meeting next?" "I'm going against the flow," Han family young master said. "That guy has a lot of tricks up his sleeves. I wouldn't be surprised if he participated," Gu Fei said. "You're wrong. It's because he has a lot of tricks up his sleeves that he might not directly participate. But halfway through, he suddenly popped up to take advantage of the situation. He definitely won't miss out on something like this. Apart from that, who knows how many players he has sent out or bought from other guilds. He might not have participated in tonight's operation, but there's no way he doesn't know. That means we should look for him first." "Why did we look for Gu Xiaoshang?" "Because he's close." "What?" "I asked for everyone's location. We were closest to Gu Xiaoshang, so we went to see him first." "Is there a problem?" "That you're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.